Chapter 98. Zhang Xiaohua said slyly. Only when there is hope will there be motivation. Didn't Big Brother want to marry eldest sister-in-law? That's why he had the motivation to do something good in the end. Second brother, you must have something you want to pursue. Bang. Zhang Xiaohu knocked on Zhang Xiaohua's head and said, You're so mischievous. Don't worry, your second brother's heart is with the entire Jianghu. I will definitely save the common people. That's right. Actually, there's an important reason why I want to study at the Martial Arts Center. It's possible to learn internal strength cultivation methods there. This may be my only chance. Zhang Xiaohu continued to explain to Zhang Xiaohua. Really, second brother? If you can learn internal strength cultivation methods at the Martial Arts Center, then can you teach me? Zhang Xiaohua was happy when she heard this and looked at Zhang Xiaohu expectantly. Zhang Xiaohu couldn't bear to disappoint Zhang Xiaohua and promised. Look at what you're saying. Xiaohua, as long as second brother learns it, I'll definitely teach you if I can. Why would I hide it from you? However, Zhang Xiaohu gave her a heads up. Although this martial arts center can teach internal strength cultivation methods, it also depends on the person. I heard that not only does one have to have aptitude, but one's background and whether or not they have a close relationship with the escort agency will also be considered. Even if I can go into study, whether or not I'll have the opportunity to come in contact with internal strength cultivation methods is also a problem. Zhang Xiaohua disagreed and said, Second brother's aptitude is so good and our family background is also clean. Although we don't have a close relationship with the escort agency, won't we have it after we study? Maybe sixth Master Li saw your aptitude and put in a good word for you. Zhang Xiaohu was very clear about this and said, I heard that the aptitude for practicing internal strength cultivation methods is different from practicing fist techniques. Fist techniques can be learned by anyone, but internal strength is different. Some people may not have the slightest improvement after practicing for many years, but some people have great achievements once they start. Whether or not I have the aptitude can only be proven through practice. I think you should have no problem. Second brother, I have faith in you. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Moreover, the internal strength cultivation methods of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency should be good. Otherwise, with Yu Dai's level, the purple sand palm he displayed yesterday was already very powerful. Yet he still wants to come here to learn it. And Shang Guanyin also probably knows internal strength. Oh, and Yu Luan, he also hasn't learned internal strength. His purpose in coming to the Martial Arts Center must be to learn internal strength cultivation methods. Didn't you see how he flattered Yu Dai yesterday? It was as if he was meeting his own master. It's all because of the internal strength cultivation methods. Zhang Xiaohu also sighed and said, Yes, he's also a pitiful person. For something that others can't pursue, he abandoned his dignity. It's hard on him. Zhang Xiaohua mocked. Dignity? Hard on him. When we were in the car together, I saw that he was flattering Shang Guanyin. Yesterday, he looked like he was familiar with the road. He might not have abandoned himself. Zhang Xiaohu said with a straight face, Xiaohua, don't talk about others like that. Everyone has their own life, and is walking their own path. Just walk your own path. Why look at others? Zhang Xiaohua said submissively. Ba, your younger brother has learned. After saying that, he laughed loudly. Zhang Xiaohu also laughed happily. The days accompanied by relatives were always short. Soon it was noon. Yu Luan arrived as promised. He did not disappoint Zhang Xiaohua's expectations and brought delicious food. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua was like a god. With Zhang Xiaohu's help he ate it all. His appetite was surprisingly good. Even Zhang Xiaohu was surprised. Was this really the appetite of a wounded person? After eating, Zhang Xiaohua, who had not rested in the morning, was a little sleepy. Zhang Xiaohu put him to sleep. When Zhang Xiaohua fell asleep, Zhang Xiaohu slowly practiced his Liuha boxing move by move in the room. Sometimes it was fast, sometimes it was slow. He carefully savored the essence of it. Seeing Zhang Xiaohu squinting his eyes and enjoying it, it was as if he was drinking a pot of wine. He really entered a wonderful state. Zhang Xiaohua, who was sleeping, drowsily entered the same state as in the morning. The more than 30 boxing moves that he had learned flowed in his mind again. It was as if there was a small Zhang Xiaohua in the water, posing in different postures. Like a phantom, the scenes flashed. After a long time, the phantom was a little messy. Occasionally, there would be two postures that were perfectly linked. Immediately, like lightning, it stirred up huge waves in Zhang Xiaohua's heart. Zhang Xiaohua was immediately awakened. He thought about the dream just now. Just like in the morning, he could not find any trace of it. However, fortunately, there were only about 30 moves. At worst, he could try them one by one. Anyway, he had to lie on the Kong for the next half a year. He had plenty of time. Now that he was not sleepy, he might as well think about it first. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua then noticed that Zhang Xiaohu was also slowly practicing his boxing moves in the empty space in the room. He looked, and could not help but be moved. A thought flashed across his mind. The more than 30 moves that he remembered, could it be that they were part of a set of boxing moves? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was not very possible. This idea was too outrageous. A complete set of boxing moves was broken up and scattered among countless boxing moves. Who would do such a boring thing? They must have nothing better to do. However, this idea was like a seed that was planted in his heart. He would think about it from time to time. No matter how he drove it away, he could not drive it away. He was no longer in the mood to watch Zhang Xiaohu practice. Suddenly he thought again. Since he could not learn a complete set of boxing moves, why not compile the moves that he remembered into his own set of boxing moves? Walk his own path, and practice his own boxing moves. But would this work? Immediately, he was convinced by his own shocking idea. Why would it not work? Just now in the hazy state, weren't there two moves that were linked together? Anyway, there were only about 30 moves. Since he had nothing better to do, why not give it a try? Perhaps he could succeed? Zhang Xiaohua was a little restless. His heart was beating violently. The weather was very hot, and he was covered with a thin blanket, but he still felt a little cold. Was it because of his excitement? Newborn calves were not afraid of tigers. Only a half-baked martial arts practitioner like Zhang Xiaohua, who had not been taught by a real master, could do such a shocking thing. If he Tianshu knew, his first reaction would be to touch Zhang Xiaohua's forehead to see if he had a fever. Then he would cry and run to O Yen, asking O Yen to quickly send Zhang Xiaohua to the martial arts hall of the Misty School, so that he could learn martial arts with 4- or 5-year-old children. Furthermore, he Tianshu would often use this sentence to teach the younger generation. Self-study is really dangerous. You must receive formal education. There is no future. Fundamental boxing moves like Liuhe Fist and Luohan Fist were widely spread in the Jianghu. Which one of them was not the essence that had been honed by countless elites over countless years? It was very difficult to change a single move. Zhang Xiaohua actually had the whimsical idea of plucking a part of it to form a new set of boxing moves. If Zhang Xiaohua said that he could do it, then everyone in the Jianghu would laugh. Unfortunately, Zhang Xiaohua did not know this. At this moment, he was playing with the move blocks with great interest, trying to link the unrelated moves together. Originally, he thought that it would be a simple task with only 30 moves, but when combined together, it became complicated. Not long after, Zhang Xiaohua felt a little dizzy. Unfortunately, Zhang Xiaohua did not study combinatorial mathematics, so he did not know that if these 30 moves were combined together, it would be quite a big project. Gradually, he wanted to give up, but when he saw that Zhang Xiaohu was concentrating on repeating 1 or 2 moves, thinking carefully, he could not help but be stubborn. They were brothers from the same mother, so he did not believe that he did not have second brother's cleverness. He started to compete with these moves. Sure enough, not long after, Zhang Xiaohua found 2 moves that could be perfectly linked together. Seeing the first glimmer of hope, Zhang Xiaohua's spirits were greatly lifted. He tirelessly began a second attempt. Unfortunately, this time, he was not as lucky as the first time. He practically flipped through these moves a few times, but he still could not find the 3rd or 4th move that could be perfectly linked together. Zhang Xiaohua once again sank into deep thought. Was his train of thought wrong? However, since there were 2 moves that could be linked together, it meant that this path was feasible. Then what else had not been considered? Suddenly, another very strange but also very reasonable idea came up. These moves that he had learned were only a part of a complete set of boxing techniques. There were still many moves that he had not learned. If he wanted to completely link these moves together, he had to learn the remaining moves. However, from Zhang Xiaohua's martial arts experience in this short month, if he wanted to find the remaining moves, he had to learn more boxing techniques. Every time he learned a set of boxing techniques, it depended on his memory. Based on his memory, how much he could remember would indicate how many moves he needed to add these moves to this incomplete boxing technique. But how many moves did this boxing technique have? Zhang Xiaohua naturally did not know, but this problem was easy to solve. When all the moves were perfectly linked, then the boxing technique would be completed. There would be as many moves as there were. However, shortly after, Zhang Xiaohua was stumped by another problem. How was she going to learn this boxing technique? Looking at He Tianshu's expression, it seemed that he was already disappointed in her and would not teach her any other boxing techniques. Even if she went to beg him, thinking of her own aptitude, Zhang Xiaohua felt a little embarrassed. She always forgot all the boxing techniques that he taught her. How could she still have the cheek to ask him to continue teaching her? Even if He Tianshu was willing to teach her, but would his boxing technique be able to satisfy her needs? Would it be able to withstand her terrifying memory? It seemed that she still had to find another way. But another way? Zhang Xiaohua could only smile bitterly. She had painstakingly come to Pingyang City and spent so much effort before she was lucky enough to get He Tianshu to teach her the boxing technique. If she were to find someone else to teach her, wouldn't that be a fool's dream? Of course, she could also get her second brother to teach her. However, just as this thought popped up, it was extinguished by Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohu had his own path to walk and loyalty was his virtue. She could not possibly destroy his chastity because of her own wishes. Although Zhang Xiaohua knew that if she were to ask, Zhang Xiaohu would definitely give up his obsession of learning only one boxing technique. Although learning was a form of belief, it was also a difficult thing. Forget it. Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and a line of words appeared in her mind. When a car reaches a mountain, there must be a road. Where there is a road, there must be a speeding car. It was the advertisement for the speeding carriage company. She would think about it again after she had recovered from her injuries. Perhaps then, she would be able to find her own way out. Zhang Xiaohua lay on the Kong bed and looked at the ceiling in boredom. Her right hand was still in pain, and she could not move it at all. The days of recuperation were really hard to bear, except for the delicious food. Zhang Xiaohu, who was lying on the ground, was still very focused on figuring out his set of Liuhe boxing. Zhang Xiaohua was very puzzled. Second brother had already learned this set of boxing technique for more than a month. Why was he still so interested in practicing it today? If it were her, she would definitely not be able to do it. Perhaps this was the difference between humans. At this moment, there was the sound of someone knocking on the door. Zhang Xiaohu stopped his moves and went to look at the door. It turned out that Li Jinfeng, Zhang Xiaohua, had come to visit Zhang Xiaohua. Li Jinfeng said the moment he entered, "I'm sorry, Xiaohua. I still have homework in the morning, so I can't take leave. I came in the afternoon when I was free. How are you feeling today?" Zhang Xiaohua was quite touched and said, "Brotherly, if you are busy, you don't have to come and visit me. My injuries won't recover in a short time. I don't feel much today, just that it still hurts." Li Jinfeng sat at the side of the Kong bed and looked at Zhang Xiaohu saying, "No matter what, we came to Pingyang City together. It can be considered fate. To be honest, although my family background is better than yours, it's not that much better. I'm also a few years older and studied literature. I can't compare to you guys who practice martial arts. I'm very envious of you guys for being able to freely roam the martial arts world. Moreover, I'm the only son in my family and have no siblings. Seeing that you two brothers have a good relationship, I'm even more envious. That's why I want to get closer to you guys. Brother Xiaohu, you won't mind, right?" Zhang Xiaohu was stunned and hurriedly said, "Young Master Li, you are too polite. You are a scholar and have a good future ahead of you. How can we compare ourselves to you? If you want to visit us more often, we can't ask for anything more. Why would we mind?" Li Jinfeng smiled and said, "Don't you, just say you. Don't stand on ceremony with me. I really want to visit you guys more often in the future to chat. Zhang Xiaohua happily said. Okay, brotherly, I like lively places the most. If you have time, come more often. Li Jinfeng happily said. Okay, Xiaohua. Actually, when you go out, it's really hard to find a few people who are pleasing to the eye and can talk to you. That's right, I just saw someone selling snacks on the street, and casually bought some. I just don't know if you can eat it with your current injury? As he said this, Li Jinfeng took out a small cloth bag from his chest and took out some snacks. I can eat anything. Seeing that there was something delicious, Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly said. Zhang Xiaohu took it and carefully fed it to Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua happily ate it and said, Thank you, brotherly. This snack is really delicious. I've never eaten it before. I like to eat it the most. It seems that the doctor didn't tell me not to eat it. A good appetite is good for the body. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua liked it, Li Jinfeng felt very happy. It was as if he saw himself when he was young. Then he took out a shabby book from his chest and put it on the Kong, saying, This is a boxing manual that I found when I was reading in the academy. It seems to have been forgotten by someone else. It's useless to leave it with me, so I brought it to you. Anyway, you're recuperating. When you're bored, you can read it to pass the time. Zhang Xiaohua originally thought that it was something good, but when she saw that it was a book, she couldn't help but say with a bitter face, Why is it a book? Brotherly, I'm not literate. I learned a little before, but I don't think I'm good at reading. Oh. Li Jinfeng was also very embarrassed and said, I neglected this. I didn't think of this section. But Xiaohua, this is only a boxing manual. I roughly flipped through it. There aren't all words inside. There are also many diagrams. As for the words, there aren't many. They're all for explanation. Maybe you can understand them? Boxing manual? Zhang Xiaohua stared blankly and asked strangely, What's a boxing manual? Hearing this, Li Jinfeng also stared blankly and said, You don't know what a boxing manual is? Zhang Xiaohua asked back, I don't know. Why do I have to know? Li Jinfeng smiled and said, A boxing manual is a book that records fist techniques. I thought that you martial artists all know. So it's not like this. Zhang Xiaohua blushed and said, Didn't I just start practicing martial arts? Not everyone knows about boxing manuals. There are always exceptions. Second brother, do you know? I've heard people talk about it. You can say that I know. Zhang Xiaohua's face was also a bit hot. Li Jinfeng knew that these two brothers had just come from the countryside and didn't understand many things. He didn't ridicule them and said, Although I don't practice martial arts, I've read a lot of outside and unofficial history. I know a lot. It's said that in the past, the teaching of fist techniques was passed down by word of mouth. It was kept secret, but if the inheritor didn't learn it or if the inheritor suddenly disappeared before the inheritor learned it, then the fist technique would be lost. So later on, smart people recorded the fist techniques and martial arts in words and diagrams, so that it would be convenient for the inheritor to pass it down. Thus there were boxing manuals. I think there were also some knife manuals, spear manuals, leg manuals, whip manuals, etc. But I've never seen them before. Zhang Xiaohua's eyes lit up and asked, Brotherly, have you ever seen a boxing manual? Li Jinfeng stared blankly and said, What's a boxing manual? Zhang Xiaohua said, It's a book that records internal strength? Li Jinfeng shook his head and said, I've never seen it before. But it's not like it doesn't exist. Oh, Zhang Xiaohua shook her head in disappointment. If there was this boxing manual, wouldn't that be wonderful? She and her second brother could follow the instructions to learn internal strength. However, he immediately became wild with joy. Even if he couldn't learn internal strength, learning boxing was also not bad. He was just thinking about how to learn boxing, and now Li Jinfeng gave him a boxing manual. His character couldn't be too good. With this boxing manual, wouldn't he be able to learn by himself and not find someone else to teach him? All problems would be easily solved. Chapter 99. However, when Zhang Xiaohua excitedly took the worn-out manual and flipped it open, she suddenly didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What was inside? Little people were gesturing with their fists and feet, and there were many arrows drawn on the book. There were also many small words written on the side. No matter how she looked at it, it seemed like they recognized her, but she didn't recognize them. How could she read it? She had no choice but to close the manual again. Only then did she see that there were 3 big words written on the cover of the book. Only one of them she recognized was 2. Zhang Xiaohua asked suspiciously, "Brotherly, what manual is this?" Li Jinfeng smiled and pointed at the 3 big words. "Isn't it written on it? Erlang Fist." "Oh, so it's Erlang Fist." Zhang Xiaohua nodded and thought about it. She had learned this set of fist techniques before, and she had learned 2 moves in it. Hence, she flipped open the manual again and searched page by page. However, those moves didn't look like they were learned by her. This was strange. Could it be that this wasn't Erlang Fist, or that she didn't learn Erlang Fist? Zhang Xiaohu looked at Zhang Xiaohua flipping through the manual and asked curiously, "Xiaohua, why are you flipping through it again and again? Aren't you supposed to look at this manual page by page?" Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and said, "Second brother, I have learned this Erlang Fist before, but why can't I find the 2 moves that I remember?" "Ah, you only remember 2 moves in this set of fist techniques?" Zhang Xiaohu asked in surprise. "Yeah, I don't know what's going on either. I can only remember 2 of the moves, and it seems like these 2 moves aren't connected together," Zhang Xiaohua said embarrassedly. Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, "It's okay. It's good that you can remember. Look at me. I only know 1 set of fist techniques. Let me take a look at the manual." After speaking, Zhang Xiaohu took the manual from Zhang Xiaohua's hands and looked at it carefully page by page. Then he used his hands to gesture something. After a long while, Zhang Xiaohu said, "I understand. Xiaohua, I don't know if the name recorded in this manual is Erlang Fist, but it is indeed a fist technique. Look at the first move. Isn't there an arrow pointing upwards? That means that the left hand is striking upwards. The move you remember is a series of movements from the chest to the position, so it doesn't look like any picture." Zhang Xiaohua thought about it and said, "Second brother, what you said makes sense. Let me take a look." And so, Zhang Xiaohua flipped through the manual a few more times. When she reached a certain part, she suddenly cried out in surprise, "Second brother, I found it. It's this move. That's right. I remember this move. But it seems like this side of the body is a bit stronger, and the position of this fist strike is a bit lower." When Zhang Xiaohu came over to take a look, he added, "But this should be Erlang Fist." "Captain, he said that a lot of the fist techniques I remember are different from what he taught me, especially the details." It doesn't matter. It's good that you can fight." Of course, Zhang Xiaohu didn't care about these details. The doctor already said that Zhang Xiaohua couldn't practice martial arts anymore, so it didn't matter what he said now. Zhang Xiaohu looked at the page and said, "Oh, you should be right. Let me show you." After he finished speaking, Zhang Xiaohu slowly displayed the move according to the manual. Zhang Xiaohua said, "That's right, second brother. It's this move. Hee, so the manual is actually such a good thing. But what's written in this book?" Zhang Xiaohu pointed at the small words on the side and asked Li Jinfeng. Li Jinfeng took the manual and read to the words, "Ce hits people like walking, looks at people like wormwood, but goes up like the sound of the wind, rises and falls like an arrow piercing through the air. The ingenuity of this is divinity. Those who don't know the true art will not be able to understand it. Those who don't learn it orally will not be able to enter this realm. This sect and this technique are based on righteousness. If one wants to walk the right path, the 4 C's of the world are open to all. Knowing one's own thoughts is based on the 5 virtues. Those who can walk the right path can walk the right path. Some people who learn this fist technique will have their upper, middle, and lower body tied together. Their hands and feet are in sync. If they come into contact with the opponent, once they move, their feet will move. If they want to advance, the hands and feet will advance first, the feet first, the hands second, is the most important thing." Zhang Xiaohu and his brother both had a headache. They asked together, "What does this mean?" Thus, Li Jinfeng guessed the literal meaning and explained it to them. Zhang Xiaohua lowered her head and didn't say anything. She thought for a bit and said, When Captain he taught me these words, he seemed to have said it before. But I don't remember it clearly. That's right. How much did Zhang Xiahua remember? Zhang Xiaohu praised. It's really good to have this manual. It's like having a master by your side teaching you. Zhang Xiahua didn't say anything. She lowered her head and thought about something. Then she looked up at Li Jinfeng and said, Brother Li, I want to learn how to read. Can you teach me? Li Jinfeng was very puzzled. He looked at Zhang Xiaohua's bright eyes and said with expectation, Xiahua, why do you suddenly want to learn how to read? Oh, do you want to look at this manual yourself? Zhang Xiahua nodded and said, Yes, Brother Li. You're studying literature, so you might not know. It's very difficult to find a martial arts master to teach you fist techniques. Moreover, my aptitude for fist techniques is not good. I can't learn every set of fist techniques. I don't think there's a master willing to teach me. If I want to practice more fist techniques, I can only learn by myself. But I don't know the words on this manual. If I practice it wrongly, it won't do. So, I want to learn how to read from you. So what do you think? Li Jinfeng said. No problem, Xiahua. Anyway, you've been resting on the Kong bed during this time. I gave you the manual to help you pass the time. If you can read on one hand, you'll gain experience, and on the other hand, you'll kill two birds with one stone. How can I not agree? But, Zhang Xiahua hurriedly said, But what, Brother Li? Li Jinfeng looked at Zhang Xiaohua's anxious appearance and smiled, saying, There's no problem in teaching you how to read. We'll start in a moment. What I said is that if you only rely on the manual to practice, you'll only be building a cart behind closed doors. It won't be as good as a master's teaching. After all, a master has practiced this fist technique himself. As the saying goes, true knowledge comes from practice. Without a master's teaching, won't you suffer from qi deviation? Suffer from qi deviation? Then what should I do? Zhang Xiahua was speechless. To the side, Zhang Xiaohu hurriedly said, It doesn't matter, Xiahua. First learn how to read. First learn this Erlang fist manual, and see if there's any difference between it and your own. You can slowly experience it. As for the matter of qi deviation, I think that when you learn a new fist technique, I'll go find an escort or someone who has learned this fist technique before. First, I'll ask if there's anything to pay attention to. Presumably, it'll be much safer. Zhang Xiahua smiled and said, Second brother's idea is really good. And I'll start learning how to read now. Zhang Xiahua was so happy that he forgot himself and couldn't help but move his body. Aya! A piercing pain came and Zhang Xiahua couldn't help but cry out. Zhang Xiaohu and Li Jinfeng hurriedly walked to the Kong bed. They didn't dare to touch Zhang Xiaohua's injured arm and only held him down, saying, Be careful, don't move around. If your fingers grow crooked, you won't be able to practice your fist technique. And so, while Zhang Xiahua was resting, he began his journey of learning how to read. Li Jinfeng was also a person who liked teaching others. He was very happy to have such a large student, and was actually in high spirits. Every 2 days he would come to disturb Zhang Xiaohu once. This annoyed Zhang Xiaohu a little. However, Li Jinfeng was kind enough to teach his younger brother for free, so Zhang Xiaohu couldn't say anything. He had no choice but to change the place where he practiced his fist technique to the escort agency's plaza. The way he practiced his fist technique was a little different from other people's, and sometimes there would be a lot of people coming to watch. It was really strange. On this day, Zhang Xiaohu was practicing in the plaza, and was a little impatient. He was just about to finish when someone suddenly ran over, and said that the third Master Chu had invited him to the martial arts center. Zhang Xiaohu was surprised and then overjoyed. He guessed that it was about going to the martial arts center to practice. He hurriedly thanked the person who came, tidied up, and went to the backyard. The third Master Chu's house was on the side of the martial arts center. It was also an abode. At this time, Yu Dei was chatting with the third Master Chu. She heard the third Master Chu ask Yu Dei with concern, Dei, how is your internal injury? Yu Dei said, Thank you for your concern, Grandpa Chu. I'm almost fully recovered. The third Master Chu looked at Yu Dei's rosy face and nodded, saying, The path of practicing internal strength is particular about avoiding arrogance and impatience. It has to be done step by step. You have always been impatient, so I'm afraid there will be setbacks. As the saying goes, to be a man is to practice martial arts. If you want to learn martial arts well, you must first be a good person. Otherwise, it will be easy to draw water with a bamboo basket. Yu hurriedly nodded and said, "Thank you, uncle, for your guidance." Then the third Master Chu said, "Dei, this time you did not do well in your competition with Zhang Xiaohu. Zhang Xiaohu is just a new bodyguard. No matter how high his martial arts are or how good his aptitude is, compared to you, he is still far inferior. Why can't you see other people's vanity? Fine, you can teach him a lesson. But why did you use your internal strength in a fist competition? This is a big taboo in a competition. It will be looked down upon by the people of Jianghu. Fortunately, this is an escort agency's matter, and outsiders don't know about it. Otherwise, it will affect your reputation. You must be careful in the future." Yu Dei's face turned red and said, "Grandpa Chu, didn't I just get used to it? I forgot everything around me and used the purple sand palm. You also know that I have practiced the purple sand palm for over 20 years. I am used to it. Sometimes I use it unconsciously." The third Master Chu said, "Yes, that makes sense. However, this Zhang Xiaohu actually forced you to use the purple sand palm. That is quite interesting. I want to see how far he can go. Yes, what do you think of this person?" Yu Dei thought for a moment and said, "From the exchange of fists, I can see that he does have some real skills. He was able to understand the essence of the 6-joint fists when he just started learning it. He even has his own understanding of it. He is a talent that can be nurtured. However, this fists without internal strength is like a tiger without teeth. There is nothing to be afraid of. Thinking back, when I used my internal strength, Zhang Xiaohu was as clumsy as a baby, whether it was in terms of speed or strength." The third Master Chu snorted and said, "He naturally can't be compared to you. You have been practicing the purple sand palm passed down in your family since you were young. You have been immersed in it for decades. It would be strange if you couldn't beat him. Fortunately, that palm of yours was blocked by his younger brother. If it had landed on his chest, he would have died long ago and you would have been involved in a lawsuit. Although killing is not a taboo in the Jianghu, it is not right to kill someone in broad daylight in Pingyang City. Although it is not a big deal, it can cause trouble for your father, right?" Yu Dei hurriedly stood up again and said, "Dei understands. Thank you for your advice, uncle." The third Master Chu stroked his beard and said, "Fortunately, his younger brother punched in time. Your control of your internal strength was good, and you retracted it at the right time. You risked your own internal injuries and didn't make a big mistake. At least you handled it well." At this moment, Yu Dei had a strange expression on her face and said, "Grandpa Chu, I still know how to control my internal strength. If I had simply retracted it myself, I definitely wouldn't have suffered internal injuries." "Oh." The third Master Chu was a little puzzled and asked, "Could there be other inside information?" After that, the third Master Chu slapped his head and said, "Oh right, how could I forget? This is Zhang Xiaohu's younger brother. When he came to the escort agency with him for the test, he lifted a 500-kilogram stone weight. No wonder you suffered internal injuries. The force from his fist rushed into your body and definitely disrupted your meridians." Yu Dei said with lingering fear, "Yes, when that force rushed into my palm, I was so scared that my soul almost flew out of my body. Luckily, it was pure strength. If it was internal strength, it would have invaded my meridians while I was retracting my internal strength. I wouldn't have suffered such internal injuries." The third Master Chu patted him on the shoulder and said, "Now you don't have to worry. His younger brother's palm has been crippled, and he can't practice martial arts in this life. Just relying on the innate strength of his left hand, he won't be able to do much. What a pity. However, I heard from the people in Huanxi Manor that his aptitude is worse than the average person. He learned fist techniques from a person in the manor called Tianshu. After a month of learning, he didn't even manage to learn a complete set of fist techniques. He's really stupid. With his palm crippled, he can't practice martial arts. It can't be said that it's a pity. Perhaps there will be other opportunities." Yu Dei didn't quite believe it and asked, "This person's aptitude is that bad?" His older brother is pretty much a genius. The third Master Chu smiled and said, I heard it from a disciple of the Misty School who was with them. It shouldn't be wrong. I originally thought that he was a rare innate strength and had a bright future. I felt that it was a pity, but after hearing this, just as he was speaking, there was a sudden knock on the door. The third Master Chu asked, Who is it? The person outside the door replied, I'm Zhang Xiaohu, third Master Chu. You asked me to come, right? When the third Master Chu heard this, he exchanged glances with Yu Dai and said loudly, Zhang Xiaohu, come in quickly. Zhang Xiaohu pushed the door open and entered the room. When he saw Yu Dai in the room, he was slightly shocked. He first greeted the third Master Chu and then Yu Dai. Yu Dai hurriedly returned the greeting and said, Zhang Xiaohu, I haven't seen you for a few days. How is your brother's injury? I've been recuperating in my room for the past few days and didn't have time to visit. Please forgive me. Zhang Xiaohu hurriedly said, It's fine, my brother's recovery is also very good. These few days he doesn't feel as much pain as before, so he should be fine soon. Young Master Yu, you don't need to worry too much. But how is young Master Yu's body? Yu Dai smiled and said, Thanks to Brother Zhang, he's getting better day by day. He can go out today. Quickly go to the third Master Chu to receive your punishment. The third Master Chu continued, That's right. Yu Dai just kept telling me that it was his fault. But Zhang Xiaohu, swords and spears have no eyes. It's hard to avoid mistakes in martial arts. I hope you can forgive him. Zhang Xiaohu said, Third Master Chu, young Master Yu, please don't worry. My brother and I both understand this principle, especially Xiaohua. He doesn't have the slightest bit of resentment, so there's no need to talk about forgiveness. Ah! The third Master Chu laughed out loud and said, Zhang Xiaohu, you and Yu Dai will both be the backbone of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency in the future. There will be many collaborations between the two of you. I'm also very happy to see that the two of you have buried the hatchet. Zhang Xiaohu and Yu Dai also laughed on the side. Then the three of them sat down. The third Master Chu said, Zhang Xiaohu, I asked you to come over this time because I wanted to tell you that I've already taken care of the matters at Huanxi Mountain Villa. Your brother can stay at Huanxi Mountain Villa and work there in the future. As long as he's willing, he can work there for as long as he wants. I had to risk my old face to find their mountain villa lord to agree. Zhang Xiaohu hurriedly stood up and said, Then I'll have to thank the third Master Chu. The third Master Chu said, It's what I should do. Quickly sit down. After Zhang Xiaohu sat down, he continued, For now, let your brother recuperate at the escort agency. It won't be too late to go back when his injuries get better. As for your matter, I've already discussed it with old Sixth Li. Tomorrow you can come to the martial arts training hall to listen to lectures and practice martial arts. However, you still have to work as an escort. If there's anything to do, you still have to go out. But if you don't have anything to do, you can stay at the martial arts training hall to study. What do you think? Zhang Xiaohu was overjoyed and said, That's really too much trouble for the third Master Chu. The third Master Chu smiled and said, It's nothing. It's my good fortune to be able to find a martial arts genius like you in the escort agency. In the future, our escort agency will rely on you young people. Zhang Xiaohu and Yu Dai hurriedly said, We don't dare. We still have to rely on the guidance of the elders. Then the third Master Chu encouraged Zhang Xiaohu with a few words and let him go back. However, when Zhang Xiaohu stood up, he bowed to the third Master Chu and said, Third Master Chu, there's something else that I don't know if I should say. The third Master Chu smiled and said, There's no harm in saying it. Zhang Xiaohu said, Isn't my little brother recuperating in bed? He's bored and wants to find some martial arts manuals to read, but I don't know where to find them for him. I heard that there are some martial arts manuals in the martial arts training hall. Do you think you can lend some to him to read? The third Master Chu lowered his head and thought for a moment before saying, This can be done. This child is so eager to learn, we must support him. I'll write a note for you to take. You can borrow whatever you want, as long as he likes to read it. However, you must remind him not to spread it around, understand? Zhang Xiaohu was wild with joy. He took the third Master Chu's note and left happily after thanking him profusely. Please add it to your collection, thank you. Chapter 100. Yu, who was left behind, was puzzled. She asked, Grandpa Chu, why are you so nice to him? You even let him borrow the martial arts school's manual? The third Master Chu smiled and said, Have you seen the martial arts school's manual? Yu said, I haven't. The third Master Chu asked again, Then why haven't you seen it? Yu asked curiously, Why would I look at the manual? Don't the martial arts school's masters teach me? If I were to look at the manual wrongly, then it would be a matter of life and death during a fight. I understand now. Grandpa Chu, the older the ginger, the spicier it is. You gave a useless manual to Zhang Xiaohu as a favor for no reason. The third Master Chu smiled and said, That's right. You have to consider everything carefully. You can't just look at the surface. I brought Zhang Xiaohu from being a bodyguard to the martial arts school with the intention of roping him in. I'm using this as a favor for his younger brother. He will definitely remember my kindness. Moreover, how can someone like him, who has no foundation, learn a profound inner strength cultivation method if he enters the martial arts school? Won't he still have to follow me? Yu also smiled and said, I understand now. Grandpa Chu, if he listens to you, then you will teach him a profound inner strength cultivation method. Otherwise, you can just find someone to teach him a normal cultivation method. In any case, any inner strength cultivation method will be out of his reach. The third Master Chu smiled proudly and praised him. You are a promising child. However, you left out two things. First, whether it's a profound inner strength cultivation method or a normal inner strength cultivation method, this Zhang Xiaohu will never be able to master it. He will always be under the control of our escort agency. Secondly, his younger brother's hand is already crippled. Even if I show him the inner strength mantra of the martial arts school, he won't be able to learn it, let alone a mere fist manual, and an extremely ordinary one at that. Yu's face was full of regret as he said, Grandpa Chu, I didn't expect you to be so talented. The third Master Chu twirled his beard and chuckled. It was as if his name was proud. How would Zhang Xiaohu know about this? He only cared about pleasing his younger brother, so that he would have something to do and not have time to think about his injuries. The collection in the martial arts center was very rich. There were many saber manuals, sword manuals, and so on. Of course, most of them were the fist manuals, which filled up the entire shelf. Zhang Xiaohu scanned through them, and found that there were at least 100 manuals. He could not help but feel surprised and happy at the same time. He was surprised that there were so many fist manuals. If the bodyguard agency's collection was only this much, then what about the one circulating in Jianghu? He used to be a frog in a well. Even though it was good to specialize in different techniques, he would still take a look when he had the time. He was happy that there were so many fist manuals, which would probably be enough for his younger brother to read during this period of time. Even after he recovered from his injuries, it would still be enough for him to read for a while. However, he immediately felt a little sad. Once his injuries were healed, and his younger brother knew that he could no longer practice martial arts, would he still look at these fist manuals? Looking at so many fist manuals, Zhang Xiaohu did not know how to choose. However, after thinking about it, he still took the first one on the top. Actually, it didn't matter. He planned to let Xiaohua pass the time anyway. Anyone would do. If not, he would let him read one by one. However, looking at the shelves full of books, Zhang Xiaohu felt a headache coming on. He could not help but shake his head. How could it be? He took out the fist manual, and the person in charge casually flipped through it and recorded it in a booklet. He did not ask much and let Zhang Xiaohu take it away. With the fist manual in his arms, Zhang Xiaohu hummed a country song and walked back to his room with relaxed steps. As soon as he opened the door, he heard Li Jinfeng talking to Zhang Xiaohua. Xiaohua, I don't want to praise you, but you are really too damn smart. I advise you to give up on martial arts and pursue literature. What's so good about practicing martial arts? Fighting and killing every day without a single peaceful day. Then you can study literature, read books, and write poems. You won't be blown by the wind or drenched by the rain. Isn't that great? Zhang Xiaohu heard this and was baffled. He said, Young Master Li, what's going on? When Li Jinfeng saw Zhang Xiaohu enter the room, he happily pulled his hand and said, Zhang Xiaohu, help me persuade your younger brother. He is still a child. Why should he suffer so much to learn martial arts? With his brain, if he studied hard for 2 years, it would be easy for him to get some scholarly honor. When the time comes, he can walk on the path of an official. Wouldn't that be great? Zhang Xiaohu was still confused. He said, Is Xiaohua very smart? How come I don't know? I watched him grow up. I never heard that he was a child prodigy. If he was smart, my father would have sent him to school a long time ago. Why would he bring him around school? When Li Jinfeng heard this, he frowned and said, I don't know what Xiaohua was like when he was young. But now that he has grown up, perhaps he has been enlightened. Zhang Xiaohu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, You should be clear. What's going on? I don't know what's going on. How can I persuade him? Li Jinfeng smiled and said, I was too rash and too impatient. You weren't in the room often these days, so I was teaching little Blossom how to read. In the beginning, his learning speed was quite normal, just like a normal person. But later on, his learning speed became faster and faster. In this period of time, he was already able to read this fist technique manual. Also look at his writing. Although he was sitting on the Kong bed and writing with his left hand, it was actually quite standard and his improvement was godly. His aptitude is 100 times better than mine. It's a pity that he doesn't go to school. Zhang Xiaohu's heart moved. He picked up Zhang Xiaohua's writing. Sure enough, he remembered seeing him write at home before. The writing was of different sizes, like crabs crawling. The writing on the paper was neat and looked very neat. Thus he said to Zhang Xiaohua, who was sitting on the Kong, Xiaohua, I see that you have a great talent in reading. You were young before, so I didn't notice it. Fortunately, you're not old now. I think you should go study literature. In the future, if you become a top scorer, you can bring glory to the family. Father and mother will be very happy. Zhang Xiaohua said in a serious tone. Of course not. Second brother, Mr. Lu and Lu Kai's knowledge is not bad. But when sister-in-law is being bullied, can they intervene? Since I've embarked on the path of martial arts, I definitely won't give up halfway. Don't you think so, Brother Li? If I change my mind every now and then, how can I become a capable person? Zhang Xiaohu saw that he had made up his mind, so he didn't try to persuade him. Li Jinfeng's eyes lit up as he listened. He secretly said in his heart, This is clearly a rare character. Even his refusal is so eloquent. How can I let him go? Didn't the doctor say that Zhang Xiaohua can't practice martial arts in the future? I won't try to persuade him anymore. I'll just preach in detail. When he knows that he has no way to practice martial arts, won't he still come and study literature with me? Thinking about this, he rolled his eyes and said, And Xiaohua's words are reasonable. But practicing martial arts should be to strengthen the body. Fighting and killing in Jianghu is not harmonious. If you have the opportunity to study literature, you must inform your brother Li. Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Okay. When the time comes, I will definitely learn from Brother Li. However, I think Brother Li will definitely be disappointed. Li Jinfeng said with a smile. If he's disappointed, then he's disappointed. The greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. It doesn't matter. Now that you know a lot of words and can read the fist manual, I'll give you the ancient books that we read tomorrow. Even if you don't study literature, reading these will be very beneficial for your martial arts practice. Really? Then thank you, Brother Li. Tomorrow, bring it to me early so that I can read it. I've been reading this fist manual for the past few days. It's boring. Zhang Xiaohua was very happy when he heard this. Li Jinfeng said as if he had seen a fish that had taken the bait. Since you know that the fist manual is boring, the ancient books I'll bring tomorrow will definitely make you read them with great interest. You won't be willing to let them go. Huh? Then he looked at the sky, packed his things and bid farewell. After Li Jinfeng left, Zhang Xiaohu looked tenderly at Zhang Xiaohua and said, Xiaohua, I didn't know that you were so literate and had such good aptitude. I think you should consider young Master Li's suggestion. Being able to live a peaceful life is also a good choice. Zhang Xiaohua frowned and said, Second brother, why are you so long-winded today? I've never been very smart since I was young. The teachers all said so. Who knows what's going on now? Maybe Brother Li was just joking. I've never thought of going to study. Is there something second brother wants to say? Ahem. Zhang Xiaohu coughed for a while and quickly changed the topic, saying, There really is something I want to tell you. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and said, What is it, second brother? You've learned to keep me in suspense? Zhang Xiaohu mysteriously took out the fist manual from his chest and said, Look, what is this? Zhang Xiaohua took it and carefully looked at it, saying, Isn't this the Erlang Fist's manual? Second brother, where did you get this? Erlang Fist? Zhang Xiaohu was stunned and quickly took the manual. He carefully looked at it. That's right, the big 2 on the cover was right there. He was preoccupied with taking the manual and didn't look at it carefully. It was fine if he didn't recognize the other 2 words, but he actually didn't see the 2. It was really embarrassing. This kind of lack of education was really scary. That librarian was also the same. He actually didn't read it. Zhang Xiaohu's face was a bit red. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's curious gaze, Zhang Xiaohu mumbled to her about what happened in the afternoon. When Zhang Xiaohua heard that second brother had actually found such a good opportunity for her, her eyes lit up as if they could release countless stars. She loudly said, Second brother, I really admire you. You're my lifelong idol. Thank you. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's excitement as expected, Zhang Xiaohu was happy from the bottom of his heart. However, he still said, Let's forget about this first book. I'll immediately go get you another one. Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly stopped him and said, Don't change it yet, second brother. We just borrowed it, so go get it changed. Don't let anyone say anything. If you don't let us borrow it, then it won't be good. Let's leave it here for now and go get it changed tomorrow. Zhang Xiaohu could only say, Okay, I'll go tomorrow morning. Afterwards, Zhang Xiaohua excitedly asked about the librarian's situation. Zhang Xiaohu also explained in detail. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua was abnormally happy and said, That's great, second brother. I must read through all the fist manuals inside. Zhang Xiaohu thought about that shelf of books and didn't have the heart to interrupt his younger brother's mood. He said, Okay, I support you, Xiaohua. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua asked again, Second brother, have you seen any books on internal strength? Zhang Xiaohu scratched his head and said, I'm not very literate. How would I know which book is for internal strength? This fist manual was also taken by someone else to find it. However, I think that the mental cultivation method for internal strength shouldn't be shown to me, or let me borrow it. They must have kept it very secretive. Zhang Xiaohua nodded when he heard this. If it could be easily borrowed, then what was so precious about it? Zhang Xiaohu casually threw the Erlang Fist manual on the Kong bed. After dinner, Zhang Xiaohu was still practicing his Liuhe fist under the oil lamp. Zhang Xiaohua watched in boredom. He was really curious. Wasn't this just a set of Liuhe fist? There were so many moves over and over again. What was there to practice? His second brother was still treating it like a treasure. He practiced it over and over again. Sometimes it was fast, sometimes it was slow. Was it really effective? He was very doubtful. He was extremely bored. He casually picked up the fist manual by the Kong bed and flipped through it under the faint light. As he flipped through it, he suddenly made a sound. His hand stopped on a page of the fist manual. Zhang Xiaohu, who was practicing, heard the sound and quickly asked, What's wrong, Xiaohua? Oh, second brother, I saw a very strange place. Zhang Xiaohua explained, Bring the oil lamp over. Zhang Xiaohu obeyed and brought the oil lamp closer. Zhang Xiaohua carefully looked at the page in front of him. He then picked up the other fist manual that Li Jinfeng brought over, and flipped to the same page. He carefully compared it and then nodded. He said to Zhang Xiaohu with certainty, Second brother, look at this place. This is the book that you borrowed from the library. This page is the move that I learned. Compared to the fist manual that Brother Li brought over, the side of the body is a bit stronger, and the position of the fist strike is a bit lower. It's the same mistake that I made. However, the one that I remember is a bit stronger than the one you brought over. Zhang Xiaohu rubbed his chin and frowned. What does this mean? Mistakes can be made in the fist manual and mistakes can be made when the master teaches. Then wouldn't the Erlang fist that is passed down in the Jianghu be different? Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, Second brother, what you said makes sense. Moreover, this fist technique has been passed down from the past to the present. It's probably not the same as before. Zhang Xiaohu said, And yes. Although the big things won't change, the small details will definitely change a lot. Aha. Zhang Xiaohua faced the sky and let out a long laugh. Zhang Xiaohu stared blankly and said, Are you crazy? Why are you laughing so lewdly? Ignore. Spoof. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Second brother, Captain, he said that my fist technique was wrong and always corrected me here and there. However, I just couldn't change it. Now it seems that as long as the moves are correct, there's no need to think so much about the details. In fact, no matter how much you think about it, what Captain he learned might not be the most correct. What do you think? Zhang Xiaohu nodded and said, You're right. Then, you're going to Zhang Xiaohua said, I think that when I practice in the future, I'll rely on my memory. What I remember is what it is. What I remember is what it is. What I remember is what it is. I don't plan on correcting it. Zhang Xiaohu patted his head and mocked him. That's right. You can't change it even if you want to. If you don't do it this way, how can you do it? You're just finding an excuse for yourself. Zhang Xiaohua grinned and said, Maybe. The knot in Zhang Xiaohua's heart was untied. He slowly flipped through the manual and tried to memorize more moves. In fact, when Li Jinfeng brought the manual over, he had already tried to memorize more moves. Unfortunately, at that time, he had a deep impression of it. When he recalled it the next day, other than those 2 moves, there was no trace of the other moves. It was just like when he practiced in the Huanxi mountain villa. Therefore, when Li Jinfeng praised him for being smart, he didn't dare to respond. This kind of memory was 1 in a million. It would be good if he didn't say that he was mediocre. How would he dare to wear the hat of being smart? If he was exposed one day, it would be very embarrassing. However, when it came to Li Jinfeng's teaching of literacy, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but feel proud. Just like Li Jinfeng said, he remembered it clearly and used his left hand more smoothly. However, just as Zhang Xiaohu said, he was already a teenager. He didn't need to be so proud of learning things that children taught him. Just as he was thinking, he suddenly heard a plop sound. Zhang Xiaohua looked up and saw that it was Zhang Xiaohu who had fallen to the ground. He couldn't help but become anxious and shouted, Second brother, what's going on? Falling to the ground while practicing boxing was not a good thing. Could it be that he had gone mad? Who would have thought that Zhang Xiaohu would jump up like a carp? His posture was still confident and at ease. He patted the dust off his body and said, It's nothing, Xiaohua. Only then did Zhang Xiaohua let out a sigh of relief. Zhang Xiaohu explained, Just now, when I hit a spot, there was still a gap in front of my fist. I suddenly thought of what you said just now. This boxing technique might be wrong. Thus, I extended my fist forward and my body leaned forward. My feet were still preparing to change to the next move. My waist didn't twist and I lost my balance. I fell down. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, he raised his thumb and said, Second brother, you really are a genius. Since ancient times, you are the first person to be able to fall down while practicing boxing. Although it can't be said that there won't be anyone in the future, this is something that no one has ever done before. Zhang Xiaohu spat and said, That's what you get for your glib tongue. Then, Zhang Xiaohua stopped smiling and said sternly, Second brother, what I said just now was just a guess. You can't take it seriously. Don't take it to heart. The Liuhe fist or Erlang fist has been passed down for so many years. Many people have practiced it, so it must have its benefits. If you suddenly change the style during a competition, you might be courting death. Moreover, everyone's martial arts path is different. At first, when I saw that you were so good at practicing only one set of Liuhe boxing, I wanted to learn from you. Moreover, there are probably other people in the escort agency who want to learn from you. But look at me. I can't even remember the complete set of Arhut boxing. How can I only learn one set of boxing techniques? When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he nodded slightly. Zhang Xiaohua continued. So your path is not my path, and my path is not your path. I changed the move because I couldn't remember it. You don't have to. You have practiced this Liuha boxing for so long. How can you change it? Moreover, you don't know how to change it. Please add it to your collection, thank you. Chapter 101. Zhang Xiaohu thoughtfully nodded his head and didn't say anything else. After thinking for a moment, he went back to practicing. This time, he practiced very slowly. Zhang Xiaohua was worried and also watched for a while, but didn't see anything special. However, seeing her second brother's natural and smooth steps, it was probably normal, so she relaxed. His mind was placed on the fist manual in front of him again. However, as he looked at it, his vision became blurry, and he soon fell asleep. Ever since he was injured, Zhang Xiaohua's sleep came a lot earlier. He often fell asleep before midnight. It was probably because his body was weak and he needed to rest. In his dream, an unknown fluctuation spread from his left hand to his entire body. In his dream, the flickering was still the same. The next day, when Zhang Xiaohua woke up, the first thing he did was to quickly recall the moves of the Erlang fist from yesterday. Just like before, he was disappointed again. However, after being disappointed so many times, he was already used to it. He patted the two manuals next to him with an expressionless face. After breakfast, Zhang Xiaohu took the borrowed Erlang fist manual and went out. Not long after, Li Jinfeng, Mr. Li, came. He first asked about Zhang Xiaohua's situation, then mysteriously took out a thick book from his chest and said to Zhang Xiaohua with a sinister smile, "Xiaohua, look what good thing I brought for you." Zhang Xiaohua had a very bad feeling in his heart and said, "Brother Li, I can't guess what good thing this is." Li Jinfeng put the book in front of Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Look what's written on it." Zhang Xiaohua looked at the cover and vaguely recognized the words Shua Wenjia. Puzzled, she said, "Isn't it Shua Wenjia? What kind of book is this?" Li Jinfeng giggled and said, "This book, it's a book that all scholars must know. It's the most basic of the basics. Look." As he spoke, Li Jinfeng opened the book and randomly flipped to a page and said, "Look, Xiaohua, every page of this book has many words. Then there's the explanation of each word, meaning and how to quote many ancient books. This is a required course for us scholars. I recommend that you completely memorize it from beginning to end. In the future, you won't have any problems learning to read and write." The pitiful Zhang Xiaohua looked at the densely packed words on the page and thought about how thick the book was. He had a headache and said, "Big brother Li, do I have to memorize all these words? It really isn't something that ordinary people can do. No wonder people respect you scholars so much. Amazing." Li Jinfeng smiled embarrassedly and said, "Hi hey, that's right. The skill of grinding an iron rod into a needle isn't something that just anyone can do. However, I believe that with your talent, it won't be a problem." Zhang Xiaohua evaded and said, "Brother Li, you see, I don't specialize in studying. Can you make an exception? This thing is too thick. How can I learn it?" Li Jinfeng firmly shook his head and said, "No, if you want to do it, you have to do it the best and start from a professional. Moreover, this book is very basic and is especially suitable for you. This is something that I thought about all night before choosing for you. You mustn't disappoint my efforts." Zhang Xiaohua looked at Li Jinfeng's enthusiasm and bitterly opened the first page of the book. She listened to Li Jinfeng's explanation and began the genius training plan that Li Jinfeng specially prepared for Zhang Xiaohua. Wasn't this the legendary driving a duck onto a perch? Shua Wenjiezi was actually a dictionary. Of course, there were many things in it. The first page had 20 words and the annotations of these words added up to 400 to 500 words. Even the genius student in Li Jinfeng's eyes, Zhang Xiaohua, was dizzy. This wasn't a fist manual. There were pictures and impressions. It was lively and interesting to learn. Not long after, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't bear it anymore. She just wanted to understand the fist manual. She wasn't the top scorer. Was there a need to work so hard? However, Li Jinfeng dismissed her with one sentence. Could it be that you're worse than an enlightened child? If you can't even learn this, how can you understand those abstract fist manuals? You practiced the fist manual last time and I explained it to you. If it's a brand new fist manual, and you haven't practiced it at all, the things written in it are very important. If there's a mistake in a word, it will lead to qigong deviation. Are you sure you don't want to learn these basic lessons? Zhang Xiaohua, who had never seen anyone enlighten him, was naturally speechless. For the sake of his martial arts, for the sake of saving the common people, and for the sake of saving the people of Jianghu from the abyss of suffering, he could only pull himself together and bury his head in the ground once more. Unfortunately, there was a limit to human strength. Zhang Xiaohua studied hard for a whole day. Even when Zhang Xiaohu came back at noon and quietly put a fist manual on the Kong, Zhang Xiaohua didn't have time to look at it. As a result, when Li Jinfeng left in the afternoon with a smile, she still hadn't finished learning the words on the first page. Zhang Xiaohua was depressed and depressed. Learning literature was much more difficult than practicing martial arts. No wonder there were so many forthright men in Jianghu. Without the spirit to endure hardships, they really couldn't make a living by writing. Li Jinfeng, who left, was 120% satisfied. No child had ever been enlightened from Shuo Wenjie. It was a miracle that a person who had only read one fist manual could recognize 300 or 400 words in a day. Moreover, he was still confident in Zhang Xiaohua's memory. As long as she remembered it, she wouldn't forget it the next day. Then she would really be his in the future. Today's results could be checked tomorrow. Thinking that a Confucian weirdo was going to blossom under his training, he felt excited to walk. After Li Jinfeng left, Zhang Xiaohua was very tired. Lying on the Kong, he was about to fall asleep. Suddenly, he remembered that his second brother had brought back a fist manual at noon. He immediately opened his eyes and became energetic. Picking up the fist manual on the Kong, Zhang Xiaohua looked at the darkening sky outside the window, and clearly saw the 3 big words South Branch Fist on the cover. Oh, he had never heard of this fist technique before. Then he opened the fist manual and slowly read from the first page. Fortunately, Li Jinfeng's teaching was still effective. Although he had just read the book for a day, he could recognize many of the words in the fist manual. As for the words that he didn't recognize, he could understand a little according to the pictures in the fist manual and his own guesses. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua read from the beginning to the end with great interest. Gradually, he felt that there seemed to be a little person in his mind, who was gesturing and practicing according to his understanding of the fist manual. When he finished reading the fist manual, the little person also finished practicing the fist technique. Involuntarily, Zhang Xiaohua was pleasantly surprised. This fist manual was really good stuff. However, although Zhang Xiaohua knew how to practice this fist technique, he still didn't understand the key points and precautions of each move and style. It was probably because he didn't understand the annotations. This would have to wait for Li Jinfeng to come tomorrow to explain word by word. Perhaps he would understand. Moreover, Zhang Xiaohua was injured and could not practice. He did not know if his memory was correct, and if he could really rely on reading this fist manual without his master's guidance. Although he was afraid that Li Jinfeng would force him to study, but he also hoped that he would quickly come and explain the fist manual to him. Zhang Xiaohua could not help but feel conflicted. When he woke up the next day, Zhang Xiaohua habitually recalled the fist manual that he had read yesterday. He did not have any expectations, but this time he was greatly shocked. He actually remembered the South Branch Fist that he had read yesterday from beginning to end. Zhang Xiaohua's mouth was wide open. He was overjoyed. My ancestors have finally shown me the light of day. Zhang Xiaohua was a little incoherent. He didn't know how to express his joy. Then he became even more puzzled. What was the reason for this? Could it be that the heavens gave him a chance because he was injured? If that was the case, he was willing to recuperate every day. But didn't he only read the Erlang Fist manual after he was injured? Why was it still the same 2 moves? Zhang Xiaohua was puzzled. But soon he did not have time to think. Li Jinfeng came again and Zhang Xiaohua began the second day of learning Shuowenjie. The second day's lesson was as difficult as the first day. and he still did not finish learning a single page. However, it was not that Zhang Xiaohua could not finish learning, but he requested Li Jinfeng to explain the South Branch Fist Manual to him. Although Li Jinfeng did not know martial arts, his ability to read and write was not for show. As he explained word by word, Zhang Xiaohua repeatedly nodded his head. By the time he finished explaining the Fist Manual, the sky was already dark. The food that Yu Luan had sent over had already been picked up by Zhang Xiaohu to heat up. Zhang Xiaohua and his brother warmly invited him to stay. So Li Jinfeng did not stand on ceremony. They chatted as they ate, and the three of them were very harmonious. After Li Jinfeng left, Zhang Xiaohu was still vigorously practicing in the room, while Zhang Xiaohua was lying on the Kong. The fist technique that Li Jinfeng had just explained flowed through his mind, and it was as clear as the fist technique that he had learned before. Could it be that this was his way of practicing martial arts? Zhang Xiaohua could not help but ponder to himself. However, Zhang Xiaohua could faintly feel that the flow of this technique was different from the flow of the previous techniques. The previous techniques were vivid and lifelike, and it was like a real person practicing the fist technique. However, this South Branch fist technique was like a human figure practicing the fist technique. The fist technique was clear, but there was no charm to it. Thus, Zhang Xiaohua tried the same trick again. He wanted to mix this South Branch fist technique with the techniques that he had learned before, and see if he could find a perfect combination of techniques. However, he quickly realized that he was wrong. This South Branch fist technique was like a complete set of fist techniques, and his previous techniques could not be inserted into it. What was going on? Zhang Xiaohua looked at his second older brother, who was practicing in the room. He wanted to call out to him for reference, but he suddenly remembered Zhang Xiaohu's fall yesterday, and he gave up on that thought. It was better to solve his own problems himself. He did not want to drag his second older brother into this and ruin his cultivation for no reason. When he woke up the next day, Zhang Xiaohua was still trying to recall his memories. He nervously tested to see if his joy from yesterday was short-lived. The result was a pleasant surprise for Zhang Xiaohua. The techniques that Li Jinfeng had explained before were all in his mind, and there was nothing missing. It was like a treasure trove that was filled with treasures, waiting for him to recover so that he could practice them one by one. Once again, Zhang Xiaohua's tears flowed freely. The heavens have pity on me. I'm finally not trash anymore. In the morning, Zhang Xiaohu still had to go out. These few days, Zhang Xiaohu was preparing to go to the training center to study, and he still had some things to take care of with the guards. When he suddenly saw Zhang Xiaohua's sad and happy expression, he hurriedly said, "Xiaohua, what's wrong? Looking like this, is there a change in your injury? Is your arm hurting again?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "It's fine, second older brother. The injury doesn't hurt as much as before, so it's probably getting better. I've already read this fist technique manual. Can you give me a new one today?" Zhang Xiaohu stared blankly and said in disbelief, "You've really finished reading it?" Immediately, as if he understood, he hurriedly said, "Okay, it's fine. I'll immediately change it for you." Zhang Xiaohua felt that her second older brother seemed to have misunderstood, so she hurriedly said, "It's true, second older brother. I've already finished reading it, so you can change it for a new one." Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, "Okay, I'll bring it back for you in the afternoon." After he finished speaking, he put the Southern Branch Fist Technique manual into his pocket and walked out with a smile. Not long after, the cute and respectable Mr. Li Jinfeng came again. This guy didn't seem to go to school and would come to teach Zhang Xiaohua every day. This made Zhang Xiaohua very depressed. "Your main job is to study, okay? Why do you keep coming to teach me? Is it because you've been tortured by the teacher that you've developed psychological problems? Do you have to get it back from me?" However, Li Jinfeng was actually teaching Zhang Xiaohua how to read and write, so Zhang Xiaohua carefully waited on him with a smile. In these few days, Zhang Xiaohua was in pain but happy at the same time. On one hand, she was crazily tortured by Li Jinfeng, absorbing the new words in the Shuowen Jiezi like a sponge. On the other hand, she very happily read the fist technique manual that Zhang Xiaohua borrowed every day. Each set of fist techniques was like a river, constantly surging in Zhang Xiaohua's mind. Unexpectedly, not a single drop of water was lost. In fact, learning this Shuawenjiezi was more difficult in the first few days because every page was a new word. As she read further, Zhang Xiaohua found that the words she had learned before frequently appeared at the back. It didn't seem to be difficult. At first she learned page by page, then 2, 3 and even 5 pages. Later, Zhang Xiaohua found the trick. In fact, there weren't many new words on each page of Shuawenjiezi. The other words were used to explain this word. When Zhang Xiaohua learned all the commonly used words, she would naturally know the new word. At this time, the reading of the fist technique manual also made great progress. From Li Jinfeng's help to explain, Zhang Xiaohua read it herself. If she didn't understand something, she would ask Li Jinfeng. In the end, Zhang Xiaohua could read independently without relying on Li Jinfeng. Moreover, the words in the fist technique manual were limited. Moreover, the words that appeared in each fist technique manual were roughly the same. After reading more, she would naturally understand what they meant. As a result, Li Jinfeng, this teacher, didn't have to come every day. Instead, he came every other day. This made Zhang Xiaohua greatly relieved. After all, the days with someone supervising were tense. Zhang Xiaohua still preferred to study leisurely by herself and read freely. Zhang Xiaohu had already gone to the martial arts training center to study. At this time, he had already absorbed Zhang Xiaohua's suggestions, or perhaps it was his own understanding. If he was limited to the 6 joint fists, his own vision would be limited. Now he was also learning other fist techniques from the martial arts masters. The third master Chu was happy to see Zhang Xiaohu's change. The third master Chu was a veteran in the Jianghu. His martial arts were naturally excellent, and his views were certainly original. When he agreed to let Zhang Xiaohu enter the martial arts training center to study, it was to appease his emotions. More importantly, Zhang Xiaohu was a promising talent and had his own views on martial arts. However, although one's own views were important, it was also extremely important to integrate the strengths of various schools. The third master Chu had always been worried about what Zhang Xiaohu would do if he only practiced the 6 joint fists in the martial arts training center. How should he persuade him? Now that his worries were all gone, of course he was happy. Zhang Xiaohu's simple style and practical martial arts style were also very well received by everyone in the martial arts training center. Only the steward of the library had a bad opinion of him. Anyone who came to the library to borrow a fist technique manual must have a meticulous plan. Which one of them didn't borrow it for 10 days to half a month before returning it? Many people didn't return it for a few months. This Zhang Xiaohu, on the other hand, borrowed a book a day. Do you think this is Jin Ping Mei? The fist technique manuals on this bookshelf, from top to bottom, from left to right, you change them one by one. If you want to borrow them, then so be it. You make me have to register them every day. Do you think I'm too idle? Thus, the complaint paper was placed in front of the third master Chu's desk. When the steward entered the room, Yu Dei was also in the third master Chu's room. The steward was very careful. He first glanced at Yu Dei and asked the third master Chu. The library has some matters to ask the third master. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to say it. The third master Chu nodded and said, there's no harm in saying it. Dei is my relative. There's no need to avoid it. The steward immediately bowed and smiled apologetically to Yu Dei. Yu Dei also returned the gesture and nodded. The steward said, this matter isn't very big, but it's very strange. I'm afraid there's something going on. It's better to ask the third master for instructions. The third master Chu frowned and said, don't talk to me about books. If you have something to say, say it. The steward immediately said, yes. About 20 days ago, Zhang Xiaohu, who was still a bodyguard, took your note and went to the library to borrow a fist technique manual. The third master Chu was stunned and said, yes, there was such a matter. What's wrong? You didn't borrow it from him? The steward smiled and said, with your note, how would I dare not to borrow it? The third master Chu said, then what's the matter? Don't tell me he wants to borrow other sword or knife manuals. If there's no need to keep it a secret, just give it to him. The steward said, third master, you're mistaken. He only wanted to borrow a fist technique manual. He didn't make any other requests? The third Master Chu frowned again and said, "Then what's the problem? Don't tell me he found some ancient secret manual from the library." The steward said, "Third Master is joking. The books in the library were organized by me. There's not a single book on internal strength. How could there be an ancient item?" Yu Dai interrupted and said, "Uncle is just joking. Tell me, what's the matter with Zhang Xiaohu?" The steward said, "There's nothing wrong with Zhang Xiaohu borrowing a fist technique manual. But he borrows one every day and returns it on time the next morning. Then he borrows another one. He doesn't carefully select the fist technique manuals either. Instead, he borrows them from top to bottom, from left to right. He borrows them one by one. This doesn't seem logical." Chapter 102. The third Master Chu and Yu Dai stared blankly and said, "You're saying that Zhang Xiaohu only borrows one book a day, returns it on time the next day, and borrows another one? Or does he borrow one book at a time without a purpose?" The steward nodded in agreement. The third Master Chu pondered for a moment, but couldn't get the gist of it. He waved his hand and said, "Forget it, I'll find a time to ask him. Anyway, you're just a registrar, and the fist and blade manuals inside aren't anything special. He's also a member of the martial arts dojo, so let him read them. I know about this matter. You've done very well, so I'll pay more attention in the future. You may leave now." After the steward received the praise of the third Master Chu, he left happily. When the steward was far away, the third Master Chu asked Yu Dai, "What do you think?" Yu Dai smiled and said to the third Master Chu, "Doesn't Grandpa Chu already have a plan, and he still wants to test his nephew?" The third Master Chu smiled, but didn't say anything. Yu Dai continued, "That Zhang Xiaohu only borrows the fist manuals for his younger brother to read. Although his younger brother is naturally strong, he can't practice martial arts in this life. He's just reading those fist manuals for fun, so let him read them. Even if we let him read all the fist manuals in the library, how can these fist manuals that are widely circulated in Jianghu create a martial arts expert? If that's the case, then wouldn't it be easier for the steward to learn high-level martial arts than anyone else? If one fist manual is changed every month, then I suspect that Zhang Xiaohu's younger brother is really practicing martial arts, or is studying fist techniques. But one book a day, isn't he just blindly flipping through them to pass the time? Think about it, he's just lying in his room, bored and illiterate. Why don't we all read the books to pass the time, while he only looks at the pictures of the fist manuals? Let's just treat it as a picture album." The third Master Chu smiled and gave him a thumbs up, saying, "Dai, you've improved a lot. Connecting a lot of information together to get the most logical conclusion. Not bad." Yu Dai said modestly, "Uncle, you flatter me. It's just that the information is not symmetrical, which made the manager of the library suspicious. This manager is not bad, he's very careful." The third Master Chu said, "Dai, you're right. What is the most important thing in Jianghu? Information. With this information, it's comparable to a peerless martial art." The two of them looked at each other and laughed out loud. They were really confident. However, was that really the case? Not necessarily. What was Zhang Xiaohua doing? He was worried about the many complete fist techniques in his mind. It was funny when he thought about it. Just a while ago, he was worried about not being able to remember a complete set of fist techniques. Now the situation was reversed, and he was worried about so many complete fist techniques. His original goal was to learn more fist techniques and link them together to form a complete set of fist techniques. Now that he had memorized so many complete fist techniques, how could he link them all together? He was worried. Now that Xiaohua's injury had improved, he wouldn't cry out in pain even if he moved his arm occasionally. At this moment, he was sitting on the Kong bed, staring at the roof in a daze. He had finished reading a new fist manual, so he threw it aside. Zhang Xiaohu was still practicing his fist techniques. He was really a model of never leaving his fists and never leaving his mouth. After thinking for a long time, he couldn't come up with a good idea. Zhang Xiaohua had no choice but to give up temporarily. His attention shifted from the roof to Zhang Xiaohu's fist techniques. Suddenly he was stunned. His heart skipped a beat, and he cried out, "Second brother, why aren't you practicing the 6-he fist anymore?" When Zhang Xiaohu heard Zhang Xiaohua calling him, he stopped. He wiped his sweat and said with a smile, "I stopped practicing the 6-he fist a few days ago. You just didn't pay attention to it. When I heard what you said last time, I felt that other fist techniques might not be as good as the 6-he fist, but it can be used as a reference." Zhang Xiaohua said happily, "Second brother's martial arts have improved again. I'm so envious. How can my fist technique improve? It's really a headache." "Oh right, your fist technique looked very familiar. I think it's the South Branch fist." Zhang Xiaohu was stunned and said, "How did you know?" Then he realized, "Oh, you've seen this fist technique manual before." Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, "The second book you gave me was the South Branch fist technique manual. Of course I was impressed." Zhang Xiaohu said, "There's a martial arts master in the martial arts center who is proficient in this South Branch fist. Also, I heard him say that this South Branch fist is more defensive than offensive, so I learned it from him." "Oh, so it's like that." Zhang Xiaohua thought for a while and said, "Second brother, then can you practice it from beginning to end? I want to see it slowly." Zhang Xiaohu said, "Of course I can. Just watch." After saying that, he got into a fighting stance and started practicing. After a few moves he asked, "How's this speed?" Zhang Xiaohua frowned and said, "Slow down a bit more." Thus, Zhang Xiaohu slowed down again and slowly practiced the South Branch fist. But when he finished, Zhang Xiaohua's frown deepened and her face was especially confused. Zhang Xiaohu couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong, Xiaohua? Is the fist technique I practiced different from the one recorded in the manual?" Zhang Xiaohua said puzzledly, "Second brother, it's not that it's different, it's that it's too similar." Zhang Xiaohu said strangely, "It's the same, why is it not good?" Zhang Xiaohua said, "Second brother, you don't understand. Actually, I don't understand either. Do you still remember that the fist techniques I learned in the past were rarely the same as what others taught? They were all slightly different from what others taught. But why is it that what I learned from a fist manual is exactly the same as the fist manual? I have a very strange feeling." Zhang Xiaohu said, "It's really strange that you're learning fist techniques. Who doesn't learn the same fist technique as a manual? You actually hope that it's different. Then what do you feel?" Zhang Xiaohua said with a bitter smile, "I don't know either. In short, I just feel that something is wrong. And if it's not right, then it's not right. We'll talk about it tomorrow. It's already late today, so let's go to bed early." Zhang Xiaohu said unhappily. He didn't take Zhang Xiaohua's words to heart. After Zhang Xiaohu blew out the oil lamp, Zhang Xiaohua still didn't feel sleepy. He stared in the dark and carefully searched for the discordant feeling in his mind until midnight. In the next few days, Zhang Xiaohua still couldn't figure out what was wrong. He simply threw this feeling aside and concentrated on memorizing the fist technique and reading the basic course, Shuo Wenjie painstakingly. Under Li Jinfeng's wise decision, Zhang Xiaohua was already able to independently study this most basic initiatory book. He had already learned half of the thick book. Seeing this, Li Jinfeng secretly curled his lips and said to himself, "This guy is really not ordinary. He can actually memorize half of Shuo Wenjie." If the scholars of the academy heard this, wouldn't they be so ashamed that they would jump into a well? But should I also jump into a well? Of course not. If it weren't for me, the wise teacher, how could this guy display his potential? I am the one who deserves the most credit. Actually, Zhang Xiaohua was the one who was studying Shuo Wenjie at this time. Li Jinfeng had already given Zhang Xiaohua more responsibility by showing him some of the books that he had read in the academy. He even said shamelessly, "These are all learned by the initiatory children." When Zhang Xiaohua retorted that he didn't see any students learning this in the Guozhuang house, Li Jinfeng always sneered and said, "In the Guozhuang house, it was the Guozhuang house's standard of education. In Pingyang City, it was Pingyang City's standard of education. Many people racked their brains to send their children to Pingyang City to study. Why? It's because the distribution of educational resources is not balanced. It's because the standard of education in Pingyang City is high. Not to mention that there are many schools in Pingyang City that recruit more local students. The initiatory children here have more opportunities to study in better schools. Even the initiatory books are not available in other places. You have the chance to study, but you don't focus on studying. Instead, you are here thinking about other things. Think about when you were young and didn't have any books to study. Think about the children in other places who want to study like you are now. Don't you feel embarrassed to not study hard? Zhang Xiaohua was struck down by these words. He thought about his tragic childhood without any education. Under Li Jinfeng's urging, he studied even harder. He was just short of hanging his head from a beam. Of course, this was because Li Jinfeng saw that he was injured and did not do anything to him. With effort, there would be gains. In an inhumane learning environment, Zhang Xiaohua had achieved exceptionally good results. Although he did not take any examinations, from the way he usually quoted classics and idioms when he talked to Li Jinfeng, it was hard to tell that he was illiterate just a month or two ago. Now his childish face shone with a scholarly aura. His dark eyes shone with wisdom from time to time. Anyone who saw him would think that he was an accomplished student. These were just some of the appearances that Li Jinfeng and Zhang Xiaohu knew. As for his achievements in the study of fist manuals, it was even more incredible. At first, Zhang Xiaohu borrowed one book at a time. Later, the manager of the library showed some fatigue and asked him to borrow 2 books at a time. He thought that this could delay him for 2 days, but who knew that Zhang Xiaohu would return the books the next day? The manager was completely speechless. He thought that since this matter had already been reported to the third Master Chu, and since the third Master Chu did not say anything, then he could only be unlucky. So be it. If he wanted to record more, then so be it. He would just treat it as if he had taken too much rest in the past few years. This year he paid a little interest. He would not be long-winded and let Zhang Xiaohu borrow 1 book or 2, but he would return them once a day. In fact, Zhang Xiaohu himself was also puzzled. At first, he thought that Zhang Xiaohua was really reading the fist manuals and memorizing them seriously. After all, he had discussed the South Branch fist with him. But later, he only looked at one of the fist manuals when it was almost dark. When it was time to light the lamp, he threw it aside and did not even move his hands and feet. Yes, Zhang Xiaohua wanted to move his hands and feet, but he had to be able to move his hands and feet first. How was this reading a fist manual? It was more like reading a picture album to pass the time. When he started to read 2 books, Zhang Xiaohua continued to read 1 book after another. After he finished reading, he threw the book on the Kong. Zhang Xiaohu confirmed his guess. His younger brother was definitely killing time, or looking for a fist technique suitable for himself to practice. He would practice it after his injury was healed. Originally, he wanted to say a few words to get him to be a little more serious. But when he thought about how Zhang Xiaohua would discover that he was unable to practice martial arts after his injury was healed, Zhang Xiaohu could not open his mouth. Forget it, let him be. Zhang Xiaohu thought to himself. Anyway, I'm just going to the library to borrow some books. I'll just treat it as a form of exercise. If he can read like this, he can also be considered to be literate. It would be best if he gets bored after reading for a while, and doesn't want to practice martial arts anymore. Then he can fulfill Li Jinfeng's wish and become a top scholar. That would be the best. However, when he thought about how Zhang Xiaohua would discover that he was unable to practice martial arts after a while, how should he comfort him? Just thinking about it gave him a headache. Time flew by, and under everyone's care, Zhang Xiaohua's injuries slowly improved. The doctor in the medical hall also came regularly to change his medicine and check on the recovery of his bones. When the weather turned cold, the injury on his wrist was mostly healed, but the fractures on his palm and fingers were still recovering normally. It was just that Zhang Xiaohua occasionally moved his hands, but it didn't hurt too much. Due to Zhang Xiaohu's meticulous care, Zhang Xiaohua's bones didn't grow out of shape or crooked, which made the doctor very satisfied. In fact, Zhang Xiaohua's injuries were extremely dangerous this time. After receiving the third Master Chu's instructions, the doctor didn't say it explicitly. Yu Dai's purple sand palm's internal energy was extraordinary. And if he hit Zhang Xiaohua's fist with full force, then Zhang Xiaohua's fist would definitely be shattered by the internal energy, and there would be no possibility of it being reconnected. Then Zhang Xiaohua's right hand would really be crippled. Yu Dai had only used Zhang Xiaohua's fist to retract his strength, and only used 20 to 30% of his internal energy to hit Zhang Xiaohua's fist. The result was that the bones on his wrist, fingers, and palm were shattered, and not only the joints were broken. Therefore, even though Zhang Xiaohua's hand wasn't completely crippled, he couldn't use any strength. If he used too much strength, he would definitely break the bones that grew back. Therefore, he couldn't say that he was practicing martial arts. Therefore, when Zhang Xiaohua asked the doctor again when he would be able to practice martial arts, the doctor frowned. After thinking for a while, he said, "Wait a little longer. When the weather is completely cold, you might be able to practice martial arts. However, you have to remember that in these 3 to 5 years, regardless of whether it's practicing martial arts or working, you can't use too much strength. Otherwise, your bones will break again." When Zhang Xiaohua heard that he would be able to practice martial arts when the weather was cold, he was extremely happy. As for not being able to use strength for 3 to 5 years, he didn't hear anything about it. He just lightly gestured by himself. Therefore, he looked forward to the cold weather every day. On the other hand, Zhang Xiaohu was naturally very happy when he saw that his younger brother was getting better day by day. However, there was another matter that troubled him. It had been more than 4 months since he left the Guozhuang house, but he had not sent any news back home. Thinking about how his parents were waiting anxiously at home, Zhang Xiaohu was very anxious. When he first arrived, he and his younger brother did not find a place to stay and did not think of sending a message back home. Then, his younger brother got injured, and he could not let his family know about it. Now that his younger brother's injuries had healed, it was time for him to inform his family that he was safe. However, he had no relatives or friends in Pingyang City and did not know anyone else. He did not know who had returned to Lu Town. How should he report this news? With the recovery of Zhang Xiaohua's injuries, his learning had entered a new stage. His personal tutor, Li Jinfeng, no longer came every day. Now he only appeared once every few days. Every time he came, he would bring a lot of enlightenment books for Zhang Xiaohua to read. He would also ask Zhang Xiaohua questions and answer them one by one. In fact, other than reading, Zhang Xiaohua had also been practicing writing. Every time Zhang Xiaohua would write for Li Jinfeng. Every time Li Jinfeng asked about Zhang Xiaohua's reading progress and saw that his handwriting was becoming smoother and more mature, he would smack his lips and refuse to comment. Zhang Xiaohua did not know what he meant. She only felt that it might not be good. Brother Li was embarrassed to say that he would be more diligent in his studies in the future. But Zhang Xiaohua did not know that every time Li Jinfeng came to supervise Zhang Xiaohua's studies, it was because his confidence had been defeated by Zhang Xiaohua. Every time he saw Zhang Xiaohua's great progress, he could not help but shout to the sky, "Since Yu is born, why is Liang born? Could it be that this was the legendary genius?" This was really disappointing for normal people. And what made Li Jinfeng feel the most heartache and excitement was that Zhang Xiaohua had already flipped through the basic tutorial of Shuowenjiezi thoroughly. What kind of people were these? Li Jinfeng did not dare to imagine. A person who memorized a dictionary could only be a fierce and powerful person. And when Li Jinfeng asked how to memorize it, Zhang Xiaohua had a, of course, look on her face. It was indeed difficult at the beginning, but later on, the words in front of her were rearranged. She just had to memorize it carefully. At the last stage, she read dozens of pages together. Li Jinfeng flipped open Shuowenjiezi again to confirm that he had not taken the wrong book. Of course, he was also very happy that his method was correct. He imagined that if he were to lose his job in the future, he could find a kindergarten teacher. This was a part-time job that seemed to have a bright future. And Zhang Xiaohua was completely unaware of Li Jinfeng's thoughts. He only thought that he had done something that ordinary children in Pingyang City would do. There was no joy in it. His fondness was deeply hidden in the fist manual. Zhang Xiaohua had already finished borrowing all the fist manuals in the library. That was to say, Zhang Xiaohua had read through all the fist manuals in the Lotus Escort Agency's martial arts training hall. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua had already memorized more than 100 sets of fist techniques that were circulating in the pugilistic world. Every set was a complete version with no missing parts. Zhang Xiaohua's memory during this period of time did not disappoint Zhang Xiaohua. Now, Zhang Xiaohua no longer constantly recalled the fist manuals from the day before when he woke up. This was because he knew that as long as he was willing, that little figure would be able to show him the fist manual that he wanted to know from start to finish at any time. Other than the fact that he could not practice, Zhang Xiaohua was very satisfied with his current life. He had 3 meals a day. Yu Dai did not reduce the quality of Zhang Xiaohua's meals just because his injuries were getting better. This made Zhang Xiaohua have a very good impression of him. Occasionally, Yu Dai would come to visit Zhang Xiaohua in the room. Zhang Xiaohua also had a pleasant expression and was not as resentful as before. Now that he thought about it, Yu Dai had indeed been careless. Although the consequences of this carelessness were serious, he seemed to have heard from Li Jinfeng that these rich playboys all had these small problems. Compared to others, at least his attitude and actions of apologizing were much better. For example, people like Lu Zhen whom Zhang Xiaohua had always held a grudge against. With this comparison, Zhang Xiaohua naturally did not hate Yu Dai anymore. Not to mention that he had actually read countless fist manuals because of his injuries. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua wanted to laugh even in his dreams. Chapter 103. The weather was gradually getting colder. It was a good autumn. By now, Zhang Xiaohua had already finished reading all of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency's fist manuals, but hadn't read any of the blade or sword manuals. There was once when Zhang Xiaohua helped him return the last fist manual, and conveniently took a sword manual. When the library's manager was registering it, Zhang Xiaohua remembered that he had only begged the third Master Chu to borrow the library's fist manuals. He nervously watched the manager register it, but who knew that the manager didn't even ask much, and was only surprised that he had only borrowed 1 manual this time. This allowed Zhang Xiaohu to let out a sigh of relief. However, Zhang Xiaohua didn't seem to have the aptitude to learn sword manuals. He flipped through it no less than 10 times, but still couldn't understand the contents. This made him feel very strange. He could recognize the words and understand the sword moves, but he just couldn't understand it and couldn't remember it. Thus, he could only throw it to the side. From then on, Zhang Xiaohu no longer went to the library to borrow books. This made the busy manager feel very strange. His idle days made him feel very uncomfortable. Zhang Xiaohua spent most of his time learning from Li Jinfeng. He only closed his eyes in the evening to recall his own fist techniques. On this day, Zhang Xiaohua sat on the Kong and flipped through some of the books that Li Jinfeng had given him. Just as he was reading with interest, Zhang Xiaohu pushed open the door and came in. Zhang Xiaohua happily said, "Second brother, why are you back so early today?" Zhang Xiaohu's smile was a bit forced as he said, "I practiced fist techniques in the martial arts hall all morning today. I'm a bit tired." Also speaking to hear, his tone was a bit hesitant. Zhang Xiaohua saw that her second brother didn't continue and felt very strange. She said, "What's wrong? Second brother, did something happen in the martial arts hall?" Zhang Xiaohu lowered his head and thought for a moment before saying, "It's like this. Xiaohua, the dojo is going to teach me Nigong mantras tomorrow, so they told me to come back early to rest and prepare for tomorrow's work." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she was so happy that she almost jumped off the Kong bed and said, "That's great, second brother. I didn't think that the dojo would teach you internal strength so soon. I really have to congratulate you. I thought it would take at least a few years. Ha ha ha, when you learn it, you can teach me. I can also learn the Nigong mantra. Let Yuluan be envious of me. I am Superman Xiaohua." Before Zhang Xiaohua could finish rejoicing, he suddenly remembered the expression on Zhang Xiaohu's face when he first entered the room. Immediately, he knew that things were not as simple as he thought. There seemed to be a problem. As expected, there was no joy on Zhang Xiaohu's face. Zhang Xiaohua didn't understand and asked, "Second brother, what's going on? It's probably because you can't teach me." Zhang Xiaohu nodded affirmatively and said, "Yes, Xiaohua. Today, The third master Chu told me that he was going to teach me the Nigong mantra tomorrow. I asked him if I could teach you after I learned it. But the third master Chu said that the Nigong mantra was a secret of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency. Only the people of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency could learn it with special permission. Don't look at how many people in the dojo are learning it. Those who could get the third master Chu to agree to learn the Nigong mantra were few and far between. Heh, you don't know, but Xiaohua, the third master Chu, also knows how to form cliques and factions. He just had to hint to me that I should join their camp. I don't even know who this escort agency belongs to or what factions they belong to. Of course I was happy to agree. People say that they can enjoy the shade of a big tree behind them. I'm not so stupid as to not accept this olive branch. Zhang Xiaohua's face was full of disappointment as he pursed his lips and said, "What kind of lousy Nigong mantra is this? It's so secretive. How about, second brother, you secretly teach me and I won't tell anyone? How about it?" Zhang Xiaohu smiled wryly and said, "It would be great if it were that simple." The third master Chu also said that Nigong mantra isn't like fist techniques or blade techniques. The practice of Nigong mantra isn't something that can be done in a day. Only after practicing to a very deep level can one have the qualifications to teach others. If I teach you right after I start practicing, then to be honest, I'll be harming you and you'll really go crazy. If I teach you after I've practiced to a certain level, you'll probably have other opportunities by then. I think the third master Chu's words make a lot of sense. What do you think? Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua spread out her hands and said, "Second brother, how would I know? I've never practiced Nigong mantra before. Sai, forget it. If you don't want to teach me, then don't teach me. I don't care about this lousy Nigong mantra anyway. I haven't even learned my own fist techniques yet." Zhang Xiaohu didn't believe her and continued to ask, "You're really not going to pester me to teach you anymore?" Zhang Xiaohua giggled and said, "Forget it, really forget it. However, you still have to tell me some of your cultivation experiences, okay?" Zhang Xiaohu rubbed his chin and said, "About this, I don't think the third master Chu mentioned it before. It should be okay." Zhang Xiaohua clapped and said, "Then it's settled. I want to see what kind of Nigong I can learn in the future. I want to see if it's you or me who's better at it." Zhang Xiaohu's heart ached and said, "And of course it's you who's better. I have a premonition." Actually, the third master Chu still had some words that Zhang Xiaohu didn't tell Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua's right hand was already crippled. Not only could she not do heavy work or carry heavy objects, but the meridians in her hand might have been destroyed. Without the meridians in her hand, how could she have complete Nigong mantra? In other words, Zhang Xiaohua might not be able to cultivate any Nigong mantra. Thus, Zhang Xiaohu spent most of his time in the room practicing Nigong mantra, sitting cross-legged on the Kong bed with his 5 centers facing the sky. His eyes focused on his nose, and his nose focused on his heart as he cultivated Nigong mantra. Zhang Xiaohua looked at her second brother's appearance and was curious and amused. Could it be that this clay bodhisattva was cultivating Nigong mantra? It was really strange. However, she knew that Zhang Xiaohu was also a beginner. Even if she asked, he wouldn't be able to explain clearly. Thus, she shut her mouth and carefully watched from the side. She was afraid that she would make a sound and disturb her second brother. Actually, cultivating Nigong mantra required silence. Only by remaining silent in one's body would one be able to create Nigong mantra. Most beginners would use a quiet room to practice. Zhang Xiaohu also used a quiet room when he was at the martial arts dojo. When he returned to the room, he knew that it wasn't suitable for him to cultivate Nigong mantra. However, he was used to working hard and didn't have any room for improvement in Nigong mantra. Of course, it was fine if he was the only one in the room, but if there was someone else, it would be dangerous. Fortunately, Zhang Xiaohua was injured and couldn't move. She also knew that she shouldn't disturb her second brother, so nothing happened. Today, Zhang Xiaohu went to the martial arts dojo to practice, leaving Zhang Xiaohua in the room. She was sitting on the Kong bed board. Someone knocked on the door and waited for someone to come in. It was Mr. Li Jinfeng. Li Jinfeng smiled as he entered the room with some books in his hands. He had been busy with his homework recently and hadn't been here for a long time. First, he asked about Zhang Xiaohua's injuries. When he heard that she had recovered, he was very happy. Then he chatted with Zhang Xiaohua about the books he left behind last time. Zhang Xiaohua was also reading very seriously. She had a lot of questions in her heart, so the two of them talked very lively. Some questions even caused the two of them to fiercely defend themselves. As the two of them were talking, someone knocked on the door again. Zhang Xiaohua was very strange. No one came to her second brother's room. Why were there two people knocking on the door today? He raised his voice and said, "Come in." However, the door didn't open and no one came in. Zhang Xiaohua was even more confused. Who was it? He shouted again, "There's someone in the room. Come in." The person still didn't come in. Li Jinfeng looked at Zhang Xiaohua and walked to the door. When he opened the door, he saw a young woman standing outside. He cupped his hands and said, "Miss, who are you looking for?" The woman said strangely, "Did I find the wrong room? Is this where Zhang Xiaohu lives?" Li Jinfeng saw this and hurriedly said, "Miss, you found the right room. This is where Zhang Xiaohu lives, but he's not here for the time being." "Oh, I see." The woman's expression relaxed and said, "Then is his brother Zhang Xiaohua here? I'm from Huanxi Manor. I came to see him." Li Jinfeng heard and said, "He's here." Zhang Xiaohua is sitting on the Kong bed. He's injured. The doctor said that it's a critical period and he should try not to get off the Kong bed, so he hasn't come out. Please come in. The woman said, "Was the person who spoke just now Zhang Xiaohua?" Li Jinfeng said strangely, "Yes, he was the one who asked you to come in. Haven't you heard him speak before?" The woman said, "His voice doesn't sound right." After saying this, Li Jinfeng invited the woman into the room. After the woman entered the room, Zhang Xiaohua saw who it was and was extremely happy. He shouted, "Qiu Tong sister, why are you here?" As he said this, he was about to jump off the Kong bed. Qiu Tong took a few steps forward and pressed on his shoulder saying, "Zhang Xiaohua, don't get off the Kong bed. Didn't your friend say that the doctor didn't want you to move? Quickly sit down." Zhang Xiaohua said happily, "It's okay, Qiu Tong sister. I've been playing under the Kong bed a few days ago. It's just that the doctor saw me and said that this is the last period and I have to be very careful. I don't want to waste all my efforts. That's why he asked me to guard this Kong bed." After saying this, he was about to swing his arm. Li Jinfeng saw this and hurriedly ran over. He held him down and said, "Don't force yourself. You can play in a few days." Seeing that the two of them were concerned about him, Zhang Xiaohua chuckled and sat back on the Kong bed. He said to Qiu Tong, "Qiu Tong sister, this is my teacher. His name is Li Jinfeng." Qiu Tong was puzzled again and asked, "Teacher?" Li Jinfeng blushed and said, "Miss Qiu Tong, don't listen to Zhang Xiaohua's nonsense. I'm just a student who came to Pingyang City with him. I hit it off with him and his brother at first sight. Recently, I saw that he was injured, so I came to take a look." After that, he briefly told Zhang Xiaohua about how he taught her how to read. In the end, he said, "It's nothing. Xiaohua is very smart. It's just a piece of cake for me. I can't be considered an enlightened teacher." Qiu Tong was happy to hear this. She said, "You taught Xiaohua how to read, so naturally you're her teacher. This title is fixed. However, if you treat him as a younger brother, he can call you brotherly. That's fine." "Oh right, Zhang Xiaohua, you can actually write now. That's amazing. When you're better, you have to write for me." Zhang Xiaohua heard this and was about to stand up. She said, "I write with my left hand." "Qiu Tong sister, I can write for you now." When Qiu Tong heard this, she suddenly realized that she was using her left hand. She quickly said, "No need, there's no need to rush. You can do it in the future." However, now that Zhang Xiaohua had a chance to show off, she wanted to share something fun with others. She insisted on writing now. Hence Li Jinfeng put the brush and ink on the Kong bed. In the end, Zhang Xiaohua's few words were as good as Li Jinfeng's praise. Qiu Tong was very happy for Zhang Xiaohua and kept praising him. Zhang Xiaohua's smile became even brighter. After asking about the recent situation, Qiu Tong then explained the purpose of her visit. A few months ago, Third Uncle Chu sent someone to the village head to say that you were injured at the escort agency and wanted to stay there to recuperate. I wanted to ask the village head to let you return to the village to recuperate. The people in the escort agency are all men. How would they know how to take care of you? However, the village head said that you were considered a member of the agency. Moreover, your brother is here. If you were to recuperate in the village, your brother would miss you very much. Hence, I didn't send you to the village. After that, I went to the south to settle some matters. I just returned recently and saw that you still hadn't returned to the village. Since I had some matters to attend to in Pingyang City, I decided to visit you. Since your injuries have healed, a few more days won't make a difference. You might as well recuperate in the escort agency before returning. Zhang Xiaohua said embarrassedly. Elder sister Qiutong, and elder sister village head. You guys are so good to me. I've only been working at the village for a month, and I've already stopped. I'm still recuperating here. You guys must have delayed all your work at the village. I'm really sorry. Qiutong smiled and said, It's all right. We all treat you as a cute little brother. Although the village head hasn't met you, she is a kind and soft-hearted person. You came out at such a young age and even got injured. How could she blame you? Moreover, Lu Er came back a month after you got injured. You didn't delay any work at the village. Ah, Zhang Xiaohua exclaimed. Lu Er came back. Then can I still return to the village? Don't tell me you guys don't want me anymore. Qiutong smiled and said, That won't happen. Xiaohua, third Uncle Chu has already spoken to the village head. You can stay at Huanxi village in the future and don't have to go anywhere. Moreover, there are many things to do at the village. Even if you don't do Lu Er's work, you can still do other things. The village head will definitely want you. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua patted her chest and said, That was close. I got injured and no one wants me anymore. That would be a huge loss. I was lucky. Qiutong glanced at Li Jinfeng and said, It's all thanks to your brother Li. Actually, you are no longer the same as before. You can read and write so well. You can live anywhere. Of course, in the village, you have the protection of the village head. Of course, it's much better than outside. If the village head knows that you can read, she will be very happy. That's why you have to thank this teacher of yours. Zhang Xiaohua said seriously, Sister Qiutong is right. Brother Li is so good to me. I really have nothing to say. It's just that I can't repay you. I can only wait for the future. Li Jinfeng evaded and said, Xiaohua, you don't have to be like this. Being able to teach you is also satisfying my desire to be a teacher. Being able to show off in front of others as a teacher is also an opportunity you gave me. I won't thank you and you won't thank me. Don't even mention the word repay in the future. Qiutong looked at Li Jinfeng and felt that this person's words were quite interesting. He didn't seem like the vulgar people she usually met. Then she said to Zhang Xiaohua, Xiaohua, I haven't seen you in a few months. Why has your voice changed? It used to be a little soft, but now it's a little hoarse and low. Could it be that this injury and the internal injuries in your body haven't been treated yet? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. She raised her head and carefully said, Then she said in confusion, There's no change, Sister Qiutong. Qiutong smiled and said, If there's no change, why didn't I hear it when we were outside? Zhang Xiaohua scratched her head and said, The doctor in the clinic didn't say that there was an internal injury. I heard from Yu Dei that his internal energy didn't rush into my meridians. He only injured my fist. At this moment, Li Jinfeng interrupted and said, Well, Miss Qiutong, young people will change their voices when they are in their teens. In the past, it can be called a child's voice. It's very sharp. Xiaohua is changing her voice now, and it's a little hoarse. After a while, her voice will be fixed and she won't be able to speak as loudly as before. However, Xiaohua's voice sounds pretty good. It's quite magnetic. Qiutong smiled and said, Mr. Li is really knowledgeable. You even know these things. Li Jinfeng's face was slightly red. He said humbly, These are all things that I read in books. I only dabbled a little and understood them after putting them into practice. I don't dare to claim credit. Qiutong's impression of him improved when she saw him like this. Then Chiu Tong asked again, Xiaohua, when will your injury recover? Let me calculate the time. The next time I come to Pingyang City for business, I'll bring you back with me. Zhang Xiaohua thought about it and said, Actually, we can go back now. However, I don't think the doctor at the escort agency will agree. I think it should be fine in about 10 days. When Chiu Tong heard this, she said readily, All right then, I'll come and fetch you in 10 days. Anyway, the manor has many things to do in Pingyang City. Even if I don't come, they'll send someone else. However, Li Jinfeng said, Miss Chiu Tong, Xiaohua's injury may not recover in time. Why don't we wait for him to recover? I'll send him over with his second brother. That way, you won't have to worry about coming over to fetch him. Chiu Tong felt that it made sense. She said, That's good too. If I can make it in 10 days, I'll come and fetch him. If not, you can send Xiaohua over to see the environment of the manor. Don't worry about Xiaohua. After speaking, they chatted for a while more before Chiu Tong took her leave. Zhang Xiaohua insisted on getting off the Kong bed. She walked her to the door and watched reluctantly as Chiu Tong turned into the corridor. When Chiu Tong was far away, Zhang Xiaohua turned and went back into the house. When she entered the house, she realized that Li Jinfeng did not follow her in. She turned around and saw that this fellow was still staring blankly at the empty corridor. He seemed to be thinking about something. Zhang Xiaohua shouted, Brother Li, what are you doing? Did you meet someone you know again? Li Jinfeng turned around and smiled at Zhang Xiaohua. He said, What do you mean by someone I know? Everyone in this escort agency is a martial artist. Not many of them will take a liking to a weak scholar like me. How can I make friends? As he spoke, he held Zhang Xiaohua's right hand and carefully helped him onto the Kong bed. Please add it to your collection. Thank you. Chapter 104. He waited for Zhang Xiaohua to settle down before asking with a grin, Xiaohua, are you very familiar with this Chiu Tong? Zhang Xiaohua said, Of course it was big sister Chiu Tong who told me to go to Huanxi Mountain Villa. Of course we're very familiar with each other. Then how old is Chiu Tong? Where is she from? Is there anyone else in her family? Also is she married? Li Jinfeng asked a long list of questions in a row. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and mumbled, We are familiar with each other, but we've only met 2 or 3 times. I'm really not too sure about the questions you're asking. Why don't I help you ask big sister Chiu Tong the next time I see her? Li Jinfeng put his index finger in the middle of his mouth and made a shup sound saying, It's too embarrassing to ask her these things in person. When you have time, you can find a chance to slowly ask her. However, you have to be careful not to let her know that it's me who wants to ask, okay? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and asked, Why? It's what you want to know in the first place. Why do you have to be so secretive? Li Jinfeng clasped his hands behind his back and looked out the window, saying, Guan Guan Ju Jiu, in the continent of the river, a gentle and graceful lady is a good match for a gentleman. Xiaohua, you're still young. When you grow up, you'll know for yourself. Zhang Xiaohua was confused and asked, Where did this saying come from? Why haven't I heard of it before? Li Jinfeng smiled and said, Xiaohua, there are so many books in this world that we can barely read 10% of them in our entire lives. That's why there's no end to learning, but there's a limit to my heart. Only by reading more books can I keep up with the pace of the times. This saying is from a legendary song in a book. When you have the chance to read it, you'll naturally know the specific meaning. Even if I tell you now, you won't understand. Zhang Xiaohua pursed her lips, but she agreed with him in her heart. She had only learned for a few days, but Li Jinfeng had been studying for decades. Of course, his knowledge and experience could not be compared to hers. At this stage, whatever he said was the truth. There was no way she could argue with him. They were not on the same level after all. The two of them chatted for a while. Li Jinfeng would intentionally or unintentionally ask Zhang Xiaohua about Chiu Tong. Unfortunately, ever since Zhang Xiaohua arrived at Huanxi Manor, she had not seen Chiu Tong once. All she knew were some trivial things that she heard from others. Even so, these were still very interesting to Li Jinfeng. Later on, Li Jinfeng suddenly thought of something and asked Zhang Xiaohua. Xiaohua, you've only been in Pingyang City for a few days. How did you suddenly get to know Qiu Tong? I've been in Pingyang City for much longer than you. Why didn't I have this opportunity? Zhang Xiaohua recounted how she met Qiu Tong. Li Jinfeng sighed and said, You even got such a good opportunity. If only it were me. I would definitely be able to bring that thief to Qiu Tong. Zhang Xiaohua pursed her lips again and said, If it were you, where would my rice bowl be? A guy who only has the opposite sex but no friends. You even have to scheme against someone's livelihood. Moreover, with your character, how can you catch a thief? If it weren't for me that day, you wouldn't have known that your money pouch had been stolen. When Li Jinfeng heard this, his eyes couldn't help but light up. He said, In that case, Qiu Tong and I both met a thief. It was also because of you that our money pouches didn't go missing. It seems that Qiu Tong and I are really fated. Looking at Li Jinfeng's extremely narcissistic look, Zhang Xiaohua rolled her eyes. At this point, even if Zhang Xiaohua thought with her heels, she knew that Li Jinfeng was very interested in Qiu Tong. However, this was the first time Zhang Xiaohua had seen someone like Li Jinfeng who forcefully pulled fate together. It was probably the first time in Pingyang City as well. If this was also fate, then Yu Lao's red string was too worthless. At night, Zhang Xiaohu returned. Zhang Xiaohua told him about what happened today. Zhang Xiaohu was very happy and felt as if a rock had been lifted from his heart. Previously, the third Master Chu had promised Huanxi Manor. However, as long as Zhang Xiaohua didn't receive news from the manor, he naturally wouldn't feel at ease. He had also met Qiu Tong before. She was the one who brought Zhang Xiaohua to Huanxi Manor. Zhang Xiaohu still believed Qiu Tong's words very much. For the next few days, although Zhang Xiaohua was still lying on the Kong bed to recuperate, she felt as if a cat was scratching her heart. She didn't want to stay on the Kong bed anymore, and kept thinking about returning to the manor. She wasn't even in the mood to read the books that Li Jinfeng brought her. Zhang Xiaohu was also a little frustrated. After all, the cultivation of internal energy was not as easy to see the results as practicing fist techniques. He had been studying internal energy for such a long time, but he still hadn't reached the threshold. Naturally, he couldn't calm down. Therefore, when the two brothers were in the room, they couldn't help but stare at each other. After a period of boredom, Zhang Xiaohua asked Zhang Xiaohu, second brother, Why don't I go back to Huanxi Manor first? After staying in the escort agency for a few months, I haven't even left this room much. I'm tired of it. No matter what, I know some people in the manor. It's also a big place like our Guozhuang house. Anyway, I can move now, so I'm not afraid of hurting my bones again. I can't move anymore. Zhang Xiaohu thought for a moment and nodded. That's good. It's not interesting to see you being absent-minded here. Tomorrow, I'll find the doctor in the medical hall to take a final look and then send you back. That's right. I heard you say that the carriage company has carriages. After the doctor is done, we'll find that carriage company and get a carriage to send you back. Zhang Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, Second brother, I heard from my roommate, Ma Jing, that this carriage doesn't seem cheap. I think I'd better walk back myself. After all, I haven't moved for a long time. It's good to walk. That's right, this is my monthly salary for working in Huanxi Manor. Take it first and give it to father and mother when you have time. As she spoke, Zhang Xiaohua took out the money that she had been carrying for several months and handed it to Zhang Xiaohu. She continued, The main purpose of coming to the escort agency this time was to see you and give this money to you. In the end, I ended up staying here for several months. It's really fate that makes fools of people. Zhang Xiaohu looked at the money in his younger brother's small hands and felt sour in his heart. He didn't know what to say. After a long time, he finally opened his mouth. Xiaohua, take this money first. It's inconvenient to be outside compared to being at home. You're alone in the manor, and I'm not by your side. There are many places where you need money. You should also buy more things for yourself. Father and mother at home want you to be healthy and live a good life. You can only take care of yourself first, and then consider giving it to them. Zhang Xiaohua insisted on putting the money into Zhang Xiaohu's hands, saying, It's all right, second brother. I don't leave the manor. Everything is ready-made there. I don't need to buy food or clothes myself. What else do I need to buy? Besides, this is the first time I've received my monthly allowance. It's very important and has a very important meaning. I must give it to father and mother. They've worked very hard to raise me. This money is a symbol of my growth, and is also my filial piety to them. Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, This Li Jinfeng is really not bad. He's taught you to be refined and refined. When you speak, there are many reasons. Since you've said so, I'll take it first. When there's a chance, I'll have someone else bring it back. However, you've just recovered from a serious illness, so it's best that you don't tire yourself out. I've already received my monthly allowance from the escort agency for several months. I'll pay for you to take that carriage back. However, Zhang Xiaohua wasn't willing and tried to refuse. Zhang Xiaohu felt sorry for his younger brother and persisted. Even when they were about to go to sleep, there was still no result. The next day, early in the morning, Zhang Xiaohua had Zhang Xiaohu bring her to the medical hall and let the old physician take a look. The physician carefully looked at her and then wrapped her in a bandage. He smiled and said to Zhang Xiaohua, The bones are growing very neatly and have recovered very well. Moreover, the recovery time was unexpectedly short. It seems that you've been stifled for a long time. From today onwards, you can move your right hand freely. However, you mustn't use too much strength at first. For the time being, it's just a normal extension and contraction. Remember, don't use your right hand to lift heavy objects. When you're working, try your best to use your left hand. Oh right, try your best to use your right hand when you're eating. Zhang Xiaohua anxiously asked. Then when can I practice boxing? The physician looked at Zhang Xiaohua's expectant gaze, and then looked at Zhang Xiaohu. He kindly said, You can move your right hand first. After a few days when this bandage is removed, you can try to practice boxing. However, you must remember that practicing boxing is only to strengthen your body. Being competitive is not the purpose of practicing boxing. In the future, you must try your best not to compete with others or cause trouble. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. What was the point of practicing boxing if he wasn't going to fight? However, he still nodded as if he didn't fully understand. Zhang Xiaohua happily followed Zhang Xiaohu back. As he walked, he eagerly wanted to move his arm. Zhang Xiaohu hurriedly stopped him and said, Although the physician has already allowed you to move, there should be a limit. Don't move so much. Try to move as little as possible first. Wait a while before practicing your boxing. Oh right, I think that young Master Li's words make sense. Why don't you read more books? Maybe practicing is more interesting? Zhang Xiaohu still tried to persuade Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly walked quietly and replied disapprovingly. Practicing is boring. Although those books look interesting, if you study them every day, it's boring. I still want to practice boxing and practice internal strength. Zhang Xiaohu said. What internal strength? Let's not talk about how you don't know where you can learn internal strength techniques. I've been practicing this internal strength technique for so long and haven't made any progress. Practicing martial arts is too difficult. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Second brother, didn't you always say that as long as you work hard, an iron pestle can be ground into a needle? Why are you saying such discouraging words now? Zhang Xiaohu smiled bitterly and said, That depends on what kind of iron it is. Let's not talk about it anymore. Maybe when the time comes, you'll know how difficult it is. If I say it now, you won't believe me. However, since you insist on practicing martial arts, then you must do it step by step. Slowly move your right hand. When the time is right, then you can start practicing boxing. As the two talked, they returned to the small room. At this time, there was someone waiting in front of Zhang Xiaohu's room. When he saw Zhang Xiaohu return, he hurriedly said, Zhang Xiaohu, where did you run off to? Sixth Master Li is anxiously looking for you. It seemed that the person was in a hurry. Zhang Xiaohu didn't have time to say anything to Zhang Xiaohua. He only told him not to go back to the villa, and to wait for him to come back. Zhang Xiaohua wanted to leave by himself, but when he saw his second brother's glare, he obediently waited in the room. Just as he was bored waiting, he heard someone shout from outside. Zhang Xiaohua, where are you? When Zhang Xiaohua heard this familiar voice, he happily jumped down from the Kong bed. Before he left the room, he loudly replied, I'm here, brother Ma, I'm here. It turned out that the person outside was Zhang Xiaohua's roommate, Ma Jing. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua hadn't seen this roommate of his for several months. He even threw some of the resentment in his heart to the back of his mind and rushed out of the room. When he reached the door, Ma Jing also followed the sound and came over. When he saw Zhang Xiaohua come out of the room, he was very happy. He went forward to hold Zhang Xiaohua's right hand. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua was already used to using his left hand, so naturally, he reached out his left hand. Ma Jing was stunned and quickly changed his hand. When Zhang Xiaohua understood, the scene of him scratching his feet immediately appeared in his mind. However, it was too late. His left hand had already been enthusiastically grabbed by Ma Jing's hand. His right hand also very naturally patted Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know whether to withdraw his hand or his shoulder. He only heard Ma Jing enthusiastically say, Brother, long time no see. I missed you a lot. How did your voice become so nice? You actually chased after me. You have a bit of my style in the past. Zhang Xiaohua withdrew his hand and wanted to let Ma Jing into the room, but Ma Jing held his hand tightly. Without waiting for him to speak, he continued, Brother, did you know that day? I was thinking about going back to the manor to lead the way for you. So I went back before it was midnight. When I didn't see you at the entrance of the manor, I thought you went back to your room. However, I didn't see you at the entrance of the manor either, so I felt strange. You said that if you didn't go back, I wouldn't have to go back so early. Xiao Dao. Oh, I'll wait for you at the entrance of the manor for a while. Otherwise, you won't be able to find a place to stay when you come back at night. Moreover, you still didn't come back the next day, so I missed you even more. AI, brother, she is also right. Although we're roommates, you can't let me do all your work alone. In any case, you should let others share some of your work, right? Without you, I'm so tired. I've been waiting for you like the stars and the moon. However, I heard from brother Shi that your hand was injured. I'm going to faint. You can't let me do all your work, right? Fortunately, brother Shi still has some humanity and didn't let me do all of it. However, compared to before, it's also more tiring. Look at how thin I've become. This is the after effect of that time. Zhang Xiaohua smiled apologetically and said, Brother Ma, it's really been hard on you. Little brother apologizes. In the future, little brother will admire brother Ma more. After saying this, he took the opportunity to pull out his left hand. However, as soon as he pulled it out, Ma Jing held it even more passionately. Ma Jing said with tears in his eyes, Brother, you can see it too? However, don't admire brother Shi. Brother Shi only has the shortcoming of taking pleasure in helping others. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could only stretch out his left hand and let Ma Jing hold it. However, he secretly swore in his heart, In a while, I must wash my hands 8 to 10 times. Moreover, I must practice my body movements well. Next time, I definitely won't let Ma Jing get close to me. Then Ma Jing talked about the trivial matters of the life of the people in the villa, as well as the trivial quarrels. It was a pity that Zhang Xiaohua only wanted to wash her hands. He was just playing the lute to a cow and casting pearls before swine. Finally, Ma Jing made a concluding statement. Fortunately, after you were injured for a month, my closest comrade and roommate, Lu Er, came back and saved me from the sea of labor. Oh right, you haven't seen Lu Er yet, right? Come here, let me introduce you. After saying this, he pulled Zhang Xiaohua's hand and stepped aside, revealing a short and honest figure behind him. Ma Jing's figure was not tall, but this fat man was actually shorter than Ma Jing. It was no wonder that Ma Jing blocked him and Zhang Xiaohua couldn't see him. However, this person's height was not as tall as Ma Jing, but his body was almost twice as fat as Ma Jing. Thinking about the food in Huanxi Villa, Zhang Xiaohua somewhat understood. Zhang Xiaohua quickly took the opportunity to pull her hand out and saluted the short and fat Lu Er, saying, Lu Er Ge, I've heard of your name for a long time, but I didn't meet you until today. That Lu Er also returned the salute and said in a very low voice, Zhang Xiaohua, how are you? Have you recovered from your injury? Zhang Xiaohua said. Thank you for your concern, Lu Erge. I'm much better now. Then Zhang Xiaohua said to the two of them, Two big brothers, please come in and sit. Ma Jing stopped walking and looked at the sky saying, Xiaohua, it's already late. We didn't come here to see you. Zhang Xiaohua was disappointed and said, Why are you leaving so soon? Why don't you sit and chat for a while? When my second brother comes back, I'll go with you. Anyway, my injury has recovered, and I'm discussing with my second brother about going back to the villa. Ma Jing continued. Yes, I didn't come here to see you. I came out to do some business and bring you back to the villa while I'm at it. Ma Jing emphasized the word see. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she suddenly understood. Ai, this Ma Jing's habits never changed. Zhang Xiaohua said, How about this Ma Ge Lu Erge, you two go into the house first. I'll go find my second brother, and let him know. I'll go with you two immediately. When the two heard this, they entered the house. However, when the two of them entered the house and Zhang Xiaohua walked out of the small courtyard, she realized that she didn't know where to look for Zhang Xiaohu. There were many people in the escort agency, and the place was big. Zhang Xiaohua wasn't so stupid as to think that everyone in the agency would know Zhang Xiaohu. She had a vague impression of the martial arts center, but today, Zhang Xiaohu had been called away by 6th Master Li. She didn't know where the guards were, so she could only return to the house for the time being. When she returned to the house, Ma Jing asked, How come you're done talking to your second brother so quickly? Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said, Not yet. I don't know where my second brother went either. I'd better pack up first or write him a note later. Ma Jing was stunned and said, You know how to write? I remember that you don't know how to read. Zhang Xiaohua said proudly, Ma Ge, a scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. Moreover, we haven't seen each other for more than 3 months. Don't tell me I can't write? Ma Jing said enviously. Xiaohua, you're not lying to your brother, right? No matter how I look at you, you don't look like someone who can write in 3 months. Zhang Xiaohua said as she packed up. All right then. After I pack up, I'll perform for you. Let's see if I can write or not. Please bookmark it, thank you. Chapter 105. At this moment Lu Er, who had been silent for a long time, spoke up. We're not literate either. Who knows what you're writing? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and thought, Yet second brother isn't literate either. He won't understand what I'm writing. However, she immediately changed her mind. If she didn't know, she could ask someone else. This wasn't a difficult thing to do, so she didn't stop. Zhang Xiaohua didn't have many things. When she came a few months ago, she wanted to stay at the escort agency for a while before returning to the villa. She didn't bring anything at all. Now she only packed some books and miscellaneous items. She finished packing in no time. Thus, under the watchful eyes of Ma Jing and Lu Er, she skillfully spread out the paper, and was about to look for a pen when she felt someone walk out of the house. She looked up and saw Zhang Xiaohu push the door open and enter. Zhang Xiaohua's senses were very sensitive now. Zhang Xiaohu walked out of the house with extremely light footsteps. Ma Jing and Lu Er didn't hear it, but Zhang Xiaohua could clearly feel it. Zhang Xiaohu pushed the door open and entered. Seeing a stranger in the house, he couldn't help but be startled. Zhang Xiaohua quickly introduced them to each other. Zhang Xiaohu quickly bowed and said, Brother Ma, thank you for taking care of Xiaohua in the villa. Ma Jing also returned the greeting and said, Brother Zhang, you're welcome. Xiaohua is young, and can be considered our little brother. It's only right to take care of him. Zhang Xiaohua was the only one who cursed in her heart. Taking care of her was rare, but little shoes were endless. After Zhang Xiaohua explained the purpose of their visit, Zhang Xiaohu's face lit up and said, You two came at the right time. I originally wanted to send Xiaohua to the villa, but I was called over by 6th Master Li early in the morning. It turns out that there is an escort mission that requires us to go out today, and we don't have time. You two coming has fulfilled my wish. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she asked anxiously, Second brother, where are these darts going? Is there any danger? This is your first trip out, so you must be very careful. Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, I can't tell you the exact location. This is the rules of the escort agency. However, it shouldn't be a problem. The place we're heading to is very close. Not only is it my first time going there, but the agency has also sent out most of the newbies who haven't been out before for the sake of training. They even made me the vice captain, so it shouldn't be too dangerous. Moreover, there's also a highly skilled and experienced bodyguard, Captain Ren, who will guide us. You can rest assured. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua was slightly relieved. When Ma Jing saw that Zhang Xiaohua's small bundle had been packed and the two brothers were still reluctant to part, he said to Zhang Xiaohu, It's getting late. Brother Zhang, we still have to rush back to the villa before noon. We can't stay here any longer. We'll take Zhang Xiaohua back now. If you have time, you can come to our villa to play. When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he agreed and said, Brother Ma is right. It's right to hurry back to the villa and complete the mission. Let's go, I'll send you out. After saying this, he picked up the small bundle on the Kong bed and invited Ma Jing and Lu Erta to go first. The carriage of Huanqi Villa was parked at the entrance of the escort agency. It was the same carriage that Qiu Tong used to take Zhang Xiaohua to the villa. Zhang Xiaohu stood in front of the carriage and looked at his younger brother. During this period of rest, Zhang Xiaohua had put on a lot of weight. His face was a little puffy and he didn't grow any taller. However, when he saw that his hands were still wrapped, he still felt a burst of bitterness. Zhang Xiaohu put the small bundle on the carriage and reminded him. Remember what the doctor said just now. Do some restorative activities first. Don't do any heavy work. If you're not careful and your bones crack again, it'll be big trouble. Zhang Xiaohua was a little impatient when he heard this and said, I know, second brother. You've said it many times. Didn't I also tell you about the work in the villa? It's not tiring. Anyway, I can use my left hand very well. If I can't do it, I'll use my left hand. Actually, I just want to practice my fist techniques earlier. Since the doctor won't let me do it now, I'll wait a few days. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua didn't want to listen anymore, and that he had said enough today, perhaps saying more would make him suspicious, Zhang Xiaohu smiled and nodded. He then said to Ma Jing and Lu Er, Xiaohua's injuries have healed. However, the doctor said that he can't fully use his right hand for the time being. Please take care of the villa. This one thanks you in advance. After saying this, he bowed deeply. Ma Jing and Lu Erta hurriedly returned the bow and agreed. Then the three of them got into the carriage. The carriage slowly started and sped away. Zhang Xiaohu stood in front of the escort agency and waved his hand continuously. It wasn't until the carriage disappeared from sight, and Zhang Xiaohua's small waving hand could no longer be seen that he turned around and entered the agency. On the way, Ma Jing pulled Zhang Xiaohua aside and asked him all sorts of questions. When he heard Zhang Xiaohu repeatedly tell Zhang Xiaohua not to practice his fist techniques, he was very puzzled. He remembered that when Zhang Xiaohua first arrived, didn't he say that he didn't know martial arts? How did he know how to practice his fist techniques? When Zhang Xiaohua was practicing his fist techniques with He Tianshu at the villa, he didn't intend to avoid Ma Jing and the others. Unfortunately, the green-clothed and hat-wearing people were from two different worlds from the Misty School's disciples. Usually, they only interacted with each other during meals and rest. Other than that, they didn't interfere with each other. In fact, the green-clothed and hat-wearing people had a faint sense of inferiority and didn't set foot in the Misty School's disciples' area of activity. Zhang Xiaohua naturally didn't know about this. After he entered the villa, he ate and worked with Ma Jing and the others. Other than that, he spent his free time with He Tianshu and the others. Therefore, Ma Jing didn't know anything about Zhang Xiaohua learning fist techniques. Now that Ma Jing asked, Zhang Xiaohua told him everything in detail. Ma Jing was very puzzled, but more than that he felt admiration. Although he didn't say it out loud, he was muttering in his heart. With his aptitude and handsome appearance, why didn't He Tianshu take a fancy to him? Could it be that the heavens were jealous of his handsome appearance? Perhaps he should still sigh at his luck. He even thought about whether he should express his goodwill to the Misty School's disciples at breakfast tomorrow. After knowing that Zhang Xiaohua could perform a few fist techniques, Ma Jing was even more curious about how he was injured at the escort agency. After Zhang Xiaohua finished explaining the situation, Ma Jing immediately dismissed the idea of practicing martial arts and put away his goodwill. Tomorrow he would still be hostile. What a joke! Why would he practice fist techniques? He had only been practicing for a month and had only learned a few moves before he was beaten to death. If he were to practice martial arts, he would definitely be better than Zhang Xiaohua. Then, wouldn't he be beaten to death with a single palm strike? He thought about what Zhang Xiaohua said. His second brother, Zhang Xiaohu, was 10 times stronger than him. Wasn't he also beaten to a pulp by Yu Dai and almost lost his life? He was still wise to not walk the path of martial arts. He patted his chest and was secretly happy that he had embarked on a career with a bright future. The honest Lu Er beside him only listened and occasionally smiled to express his agreement. He faithfully performed all the actions that a minor character should do. The carriage arrived at Huanxi Manor in a short while. They entered through the side door as usual. The carriage stopped at the side door and waited for the guard to inspect it. Ma Jing and Lu Er were not like Qiu Tong. They didn't need any waste tokens and could even bring strangers into the manor. They obediently took out their waste tokens and handed them over. Then the guard looked at Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and then patted her forehead. Yes, she had received a waste token when she left the manor a few months ago. Naturally, she had to return that waste token now. However, where did she put that waste token? She hadn't used it for a long time and seemed to have forgotten about it. She seemed to have used it as a paperweight when she was learning to read and write from Li Jinfeng. She didn't pay attention to whether she had put it in when she was packing her bag. The small bag had to be knotted. Knots were easy to tie, but difficult to untie. Zhang Xiaohua's left hand and injured right hand were very difficult to untie. Ma Jing was at the side and naturally took over the bag and helped untie it. Zhang Xiaohua flipped through the things inside. Sure enough, she found the missing waste token among a few books. She picked it up and casually handed it to Ma Jing. Ma Jing didn't care and casually glanced at it. He turned around and was about to hand it to the guard. Just as he was about to reach out, he suddenly thought of something and said, "Eh." He retracted his hand and carefully looked at the waste token. He looked at it up and down, left and right. Then he frowned and asked, "Zhang Xiaohua, why is your waste token different from ours?" Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. She took the waste token and looked at it carefully. She said, "This is it. I don't have any other waste tokens, only this one. It should have been given when I left the manor last time. Could it be that this waste token doesn't belong to our manor? It's broken. Did I lose it?" Ma Jing was also stunned. He said, "This waste token should belong to our manor. It's similar to ours. Also, it looks familiar to me. I think I've seen it somewhere before." Zhang Xiaohua asked, "Why? There are many types of waste tokens in the manor?" Ma Jing said, "Yes, according to the work they do, everyone's waste tag is different. Just like Nie Er and the others who are next to us. I remember now. When Nie Er first came here, he went to Pingyang City with me. His waste tag was like this. At that time, I even held 2 waste tokens and compared them. That's why yours looks more familiar. How can you hold this kind of waste token?" Zhang Xiaohua said with a bitter smile, "Brother Ma, this is also my first time holding a waste token. How would I know the reason? You might as well ask the guard." Ma Jing heard and felt that it made sense. He handed the waste token to the guard. The guard took it and carefully checked it. After registering it, he kept it. At this moment, Ma Jing went up to him and asked, "Brother guard, can I ask you a question?" That guard nodded. Ma Jing asked, "Brother guard, can you tell me why this little brother of mine can receive this kind of waste token?" When the guard heard this, he laughed as if he was looking at an idiot. He replied, "I don't know either. I'm only in charge of verifying if it's a real waste token and letting people enter the manor. As for who uses what waste token, I don't care. You have to go to the front and ask the person who gives out the waste tokens." Ma Jing was unhappy when he heard this. What was the difference between this and not saying anything? However, he didn't dare to show his dissatisfaction. He put on a fake smile and thanked the guard. That guard didn't say anything. He waved his hand and let the horse carriage enter the manor. He slandered in his heart. I know you're unhappy. You say thank you, but who knows what you're saying about me in your heart. The horse carriage dropped the 3 people at the entrance of the small courtyard and went elsewhere. Zhang Xiaohua got off the car and looked at the familiar outer sect. He sighed with emotion. Time flew by and people changed. He hadn't seen them for a few months, but he had many feelings. When he first arrived, he was like a child, unfamiliar with this place. In a month, he had entered and exited the outer sect countless times, as well as the empty space beside the outer sect. He was covered in sweat and had dozens of incomplete moves. Then he went out alone, and in the blink of an eye, several months had passed. When he looked back, he was already injured. Fate made fools of people. Fate was cruel. Carrying his small bag, Zhang Xiaohua followed Ma Jing and Lu Er into the courtyard. It was already noon, but the others hadn't come back yet. The courtyard was quiet. Zhang Xiaohua was a little absent-minded. He followed the 2 into the small house. Then he threw the bag on the Kong bed that he used to live in and sat down casually. However, he soon found that Ma Jing was looking at him strangely. Lu Er was also looking at him uncharacteristically and laughing foolishly. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but be stunned. He looked down at his body and then at his feet. He didn't step on dog shit. What was there to see? But when he raised his head and looked around, he couldn't help but jump down from the Kong bed. It turned out that the Kong bed had been replaced with a different bedding. The things on the small table on the Kong bed were also different. Zhang Xiaohua then remembered that before he came to the mountain villa, Lu Er was in the same room as Ma Jing. Since he came back and he wasn't in the mountain villa, Lu Er naturally continued to live in the original room and Kong bed. He didn't care and made others laugh. Zhang Xiaohua blushed and was about to say something when Lu Er quickly said, "It's okay. Zhang Xiaohua, if you're tired, sit on the Kong bed for a while. You just recovered from your injury, so you should pay more attention." Zhang Xiaohua was touched. What a good person. It was rare to see someone like him in green. Lu Er continued to say, "If you're used to sleeping on this Kong bed, I'll go find Brother Shi and have him arrange a room for me. You can stay with Brother Ma." Zhang Xiaohua woke up as if struck by lightning. He quickly waved his hand and said, "Don't. A gentleman doesn't take what others love. Since it's Brother Lu Er's original Kong bed, I naturally have to give it up. There's no way for me to continue sleeping there. It's better for me to go out and find another place." Lu Er said, "I'm used to sleeping anywhere. You're an injured patient. It's better for you to stay in the original place. The power of habit is endless. It's also beneficial for your recovery." Thus, the 2 of them fought over the Kong bed. They both wanted to give the best Kong bed to each other. Ma Jing, who was watching from the side, sighed with emotion. They were both good people. It's also because of my good character that the people who live with me can be influenced to become gentlemen. Just as the 2 of them were arguing, a burst of noise came from the courtyard. Presumably, Tian Zhongxi and the others had returned. Zhang Xiaohua happily ran out of the small house. It wasn't only to escape Lu Er's enthusiasm, but also to see these Tian friends that she had struggled with for a month. When Zhang Xiaohua appeared in the courtyard, the green-clothed people were very surprised. They all surrounded her and asked her all sorts of questions. In fact, Zhang Xiaohua wasn't that familiar with them. Moreover, in this short month, she hadn't really integrated into their circle. It was only a few months that they hadn't seen each other, so everyone felt a sense of novelty. Moreover, they had heard that this Zhang Xiaohua had actually been injured in a martial arts competition, and had almost lost her life. Naturally, they were very curious. One of them said, "Zhang Xiaohua, I heard that you challenged that strongman of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency. He flew into a rage out of humiliation, and heavily injured you with one slap. Is that true?" Another one asked, "Zhang Xiaohua, I heard that you fought with 12 experts of the escort agency in a row and finally died of exhaustion. Is that true?" Another one said, "Zhang Xiaohua, I heard that you were bewitched by the female escort of the Lotus Flower Escort Agency. She even used the yin-yang harmony powder to knock you down. You are our idol." That's right. How was that female escort's figure? When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she felt a burst of dizziness. What was going on? She originally wanted to tell them in detail, but she suddenly didn't have the strength to say a single word. She could only smile and respond with a "e" and "ah." Tian Zhongxi, on the other hand, stood outside the circle with a calm expression. No one knew what he was thinking about. When everyone had made enough noise, he put on a stern face and scolded. Everyone disperse. Zhang Xiaohua is back. If you want to know anything, there will be plenty of opportunities and time to ask in the future. She hasn't fully recovered yet. If you guys bump into her, be careful that you guys have to pay Zhang Xiaohua's medical fees. These words were really effective. The group of people in green immediately distanced themselves from Zhang Xiaohua. Even if Zhang Xiaohua were to fall down now, they definitely wouldn't have to bear any responsibility. Tian Zhongxi continued, hurry up and tidy up to eat. After that, there's still a lot of work to do in the afternoon. If you delay, don't blame me for docking your wages. These words were even more effective. Who would want to refuse their own wages? They immediately dispersed and returned to their own rooms. Their warm feelings of concern immediately vanished like smoke in thin air. Tian Zhongxi looked at Zhang Xiaohua, who was surprised by everyone's quick actions, and said, Zhang Xiaohua, come with me. After that, he didn't wait for him and walked back to his own room. Zhang Xiaohua felt strange when she saw Tian Zhongxi's indifferent attitude towards her. However, now was not the time to think about it. Seeing that Tian Zhongxi was about to enter the room, she quickly followed him. Tian Zhongxi walked into the room and turned to look at Zhang Xiaohua, who ran into the room. He said in a flat tone, Zhang Xiaohua, how's your injury? Zhang Xiaohua looked at Tian Zhongxi carefully and said, It's okay, brother Shi. Although I haven't fully recovered, I can work with my left hand. It won't affect the work assigned to us by the villa. Tian Zhongxi said, Hee, this is not under my control. I'm relieved that your injury has recovered. After all, you used to be my little brother. If anything happened to you, I wouldn't feel good. These words were strange. Zhang Xiaohua still didn't understand. However, Tian Zhongxi pointed to a pile of bedding on the idol Kong and said, That's your bedding. See if there's anything missing. Then follow me. I'll arrange a place for you to live in the future. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she was like a monkey whose tail was burned. She immediately jumped up and said, Brother Shi, please don't arrange for me to live in Brother Ma's room again. Please, please. Chapter 106. Tian Zhongxi looked at Zhang Xiaohua's fawning face and couldn't help but smile. He said, Bring me the bedding first. It's not up to me to decide where you live. Zhang Xiaohua was puzzled again and asked, Brother Shi then, who has the final say? Tian Zhongxi ignored her and waved his hand. Come follow me. You'll know when you get there. After he finished speaking, he pushed the door open and walked out with a deep look on his face. Zhang Xiaohua was confused. She had to take the bedding and follow Tian Zhongxi out. Tian Zhongxi went out and turned left. It was in the direction of Ma Jing's house. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Moreover, Tian Zhongxi's footsteps stopped in front of Ma Jing's house. Zhang Xiaohua's heartbeat suddenly accelerated. She complained in her heart. He said he wouldn't let me live in this house. It turned out that he was tricking me. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't see Tian Zhongxi's face, but there was a smile on his face. The corners of his mouth were also upturned. It seemed that he was playing. When Zhang Xiaohua's heart jumped to her throat, he moved forward again. The pitiful Zhang Xiaohua didn't realize that he was being toyed with at all. He let out a long sigh and thanked the gods in his heart. Only then did he cheerfully follow. Tian Zhongxi didn't stop until he reached the end of the row of houses. He knocked on the door. Another voice that Zhang Xiaohua was very familiar with came from the house. Who is it? Come in. This was actually He Tianshu's room. Speaking of the people Zhang Xiaohua wanted to see most in Huanqi Mountain Villa, He Tianshu was definitely one of the candidates. She thought that she could see him after dinner. Who knew that she would meet him in such a situation as soon as she returned to the villa? Zhang Xiaohua followed Tian Zhongxi into the house with the bedding. Seeing the face that she hadn't seen for months, Zhang Xiaohua wanted to cry. This kind of thought didn't arise when he woke up after being injured and saw Zhang Xiaohu. Tian Zhongxi looked at He Tianshu and said, "Captain He, I've brought Zhang Xiaohua." Zhang Xiaohua stood alone at the door of the room. She hugged the blanket with her left hand and called out timidly. Captain He was like a child who had been bullied. He felt wronged but did not dare to tell his family. He could only swallow his teeth. His eyes were pleading for help, hoping that his family would stand up for him. He Tianshu looked at his stupid disciple and thought about his half-baked and incomplete fist technique. He thought about how he persistently practiced his fist technique in the middle of the night under the moonlight. He thought about how he actually dared to face a powerful opponent and bravely extended his little fist in order to save his brother's life with his right hand. Although He Tianshu did not see it with his own eyes, he could imagine Zhang Xiaohua's stubborn gaze and his determined footsteps even with his eyes closed. He even remembered the horse stance that he had personally taught him. However, He Tianshu didn't take another look at Zhang Xiaohua. He retracted his gaze and smiled at Tian Zhongxi. "Okay, sorry to trouble you. Leave it to me." Tian Zhongxi nodded and didn't say anything else. He turned around and walked in front of Zhang Xiaohua. He patted Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder and said, "Zhang Xiaohua, from now on, Captain He will be in charge of you. Take care of your body." After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Zhang Xiaohua to say anything and walked away. Zhang Xiaohua didn't seem to understand what had happened. She just stood there in a daze, not knowing what to do next. Fortunately, at this moment, He Tianshu walked up and asked gently, "Zhang Xiaohua, how are your injuries?" Zhang Xiaohua came back to her senses. She smiled and said, "Captain He, it's nothing serious. I can move around a little." Then Zhang Xiaohua said apologetically, "Captain He, I'm sorry." He Tianshu was stunned and asked, "Sorry? Why?" Zhang Xiaohua said strangely, "I was injured during the competition. Naturally, I lost face for you. However, you can punish me however you want. Just don't expel me from the sect." He Tianshu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He asked, "Who told you this?" Zhang Xiaohua said, "Isn't it written in the books? Isn't it true?" He Tianshu was stunned and asked, "Aren't you illiterate? You heard it from someone." Zhang Xiaohua looked up and said proudly, "Captain He, I can read now. I can even write. I read all these in books." He Tianshu was even more stunned. He said, "In just a few months you can read and read? Not bad. You're really a good child." Zhang Xiaohua heard He Tianshu's praise and blushed. She said modestly, "I didn't learn much. I just learned the Shuowen Jiezi that children used to learn. I also read a few books that they must learn." "What?" "The Shuowen Jiezi that is used to teach children." This time, it was He Tianshu's turn to be confused. "You said that you finished learning the Shuowen Jiezi?" When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she felt embarrassed and said, "Captain He, I was wrong again. I shouldn't have boasted. I know that this is something that children in Pingyang City learn. I won't say it again." He Tianshu fell to the ground with a thud. Then he flipped himself up and stood steadily in front of Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua looked at him with stars in her eyes. She thought to herself, "Idle, idle. What a graceful posture. I don't know when I can learn it." Poor He Tianshu patted his forehead and thought, "Shuowen Jiezi, a children's first lesson? Am I having a fever?" Then He Tianshu asked, "Where's your first lesson book? Let me see." Zhang Xiaohua then remembered and said hurriedly, "Oh, I forgot it in Ma Jing's room. I'll go get it now." With that, she turned and ran out. He Tianshu immediately stopped her and said, "There's no need, Zhang Xiaohua. Let's talk about it in the future." Zhang Xiaohua obediently stopped in her tracks. He Tianshu said, "Whether you heard it or saw it yourself, you can't take it seriously. First of all, you're not my disciple. I'm only teaching you fist techniques. This is something that's widely spread in the martial arts world. It's not my unique technique. You're not my disciple, so I can't chase you out. Secondly, you did very well this time. Even if I'm your master, I won't blame you." Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed and said, "Really? Captain He, you also think that I did very well?" But I was defeated. I couldn't even take a slap from him. He Tianshu patted her shoulder and said, Silly Hua, you've only learned fist techniques for a few days. How many years did he learn? What kind of fist techniques did you learn? What kind of inner strength mantra did he learn? Although the purple sand palm isn't some profound inner strength mantra, against someone like you who hasn't even seen the shadow of martial arts, it's like an adult against a newborn child. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Oh right, let me take a look at your injuries. He Tianshu held up Zhang Xiaohua's right hand and said, Put the blanket on the chair first. Zhang Xiaohua placed her blanket on the chair next to her, and obediently allowed He Tianshu to carefully pinch her fingers. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua's right hand was still wrapped in bandages. He Tianshu didn't unwrap the bandages and only felt them carefully through the bandages. When He Tianshu felt the bones of her right hand's fingers and wrist, he looked at He Tianshu's fluctuating expression and said cheerfully, Captain He, you're recovering well, right? The doctor at the escort agency said that I can't practice fist techniques for the time being, and can only do so in a few days. Sai, I really can't wait. I want to be able to practice the horse stance right now. He Tianshu looked at Zhang Xiaohua's excited expression and wanted to say something but stopped himself. He smiled and said, All right, I'll take a look at your injuries in a few days and we can practice fist techniques together. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed and said, Really, Captain He, you can teach me fist techniques again? Aren't you afraid that I'll forget again? Hearing this, He Tianshu immediately came to his senses and said regretfully, Well, I'll let second brother Nie teach you. When you're almost done learning, I'll teach you then. Zhang Xiaohua said cheerfully, Then I'll definitely learn from second brother Nie, so that I won't embarrass Captain He in the next fist technique competition. He Tianshu smiled a little reluctantly and said, All right, I believe you can do it. Then He Tianshu said, But before you start practicing, I have to arrange a place for you to stay. Oh, didn't brother she say? Zhang Xiaohua paused and said incredulously, Captain He, could it be that the person brother she was talking about is you? He Tianshu smiled and said, Didn't Tianzhong she say just now that he's leaving you to me? Didn't you hear him clearly? Or are you so stupid that you can't even understand this? Zhang Xiaohua grinned and said, These things I'm sometimes confused and sometimes I understand. Of course I know that you're arranging for me, but I can't believe it. I'm just a manservant in the villa. You're a Misty School student who came to the villa to plant herbs. We're not related at all, so how can I be managed by you? This is what I'm puzzled about. He Tianshu scolded with a smile. How do you know that you're a manservant in the Huanxi villa? You didn't come to the Huanxi villa as a manservant, but as a member of the Lotus Escort Agency. You're different from those people who wear green clothes and hats. You hang out with them every day and don't have any awareness of being an escort agency. Think about it. If you were just a manservant, the villa lord might not have let me teach you fist techniques. Zhang Xiaohua finally understood and said, Oh, I know. No wonder the waist tag that was given to me when I went out was different from that of Brother Ma and the others. So it was like this. Yes, it's like this. He Tianshu nodded and said, When you first came, you were indeed replacing Lu Er's work. However, if that's the case, wouldn't it be a waste of the strength of your arms? The villa lord would never let you do ordinary work. You were just there to adapt to the environment. However, plans can't keep up with changes. Before I could adjust for you, you had an accident. I thought that I wouldn't be able to see you again, but it just so happened that the third Master Chu of the escort agency came to the villa lord to plead for you. The villa lord also took pity on you and put you back into my team. Do you understand? Zhang Xiaohua beamed with joy and said, I understand, Captain He. I'll be in your care in the future. Oh right, I haven't met Sister Villa Lord yet. She's really a good person. I'll have to thank her properly in the future. He Tianshu smiled and rubbed his head saying, Yes, you should really thank the Villa Lord. She's really good to you. All right, come with me. I'll arrange a room for you first. I still have to go eat. After he finished speaking, He Tianshu picked up the bedding on the chair and was about to leave. Zhang Xiaohua wouldn't let him take it. He quickly used his left hand to snatch the bedding and said, Captain He, I'll take it myself. He Tianshu didn't return it to him and said with a smile, "Your hand isn't convenient. I'll take it for you. It's only a matter of 2 steps." When Zhang Xiaohua heard He Tianshu's words, he thought that it made sense and didn't insist. He Tianshu took the bedding and led Zhang Xiaohua out the door. He turned right and walked to the front of the 5th room. He pushed the door open and went in. No one lived in the room, but it was very clean. The layout of the room was the same as the room Zhang Xiaohua used to live in. He Tianshu threw the bedding onto a kong and said to Zhang Xiaohua, "Zhang Xiaohua, from today onwards, this room is yours. You don't have to work for the time being. Take care of your injuries. If you can't stay idle, you can go with Nie Xiao, or to the medicine field to take a look." Zhang Xiaohua looked at the empty room and said in confusion, "Captain He, there's no one else in this room. I'm the only one living here?" He Tianshu smiled and said, "Yes, our treatment is different from Tianzhongxi and the others. We all live in a room alone. Nie Xiao, and the others are the same. Don't tell me you want to live with them. But even if you want to, they won't be willing. You should be at ease and live alone." Zhang Xiaohua rubbed her head and said, "It's nothing. I'll live alone then. But I haven't lived in a room alone since I was young. I'm not used to it." He Tianshu said, "Yes, slowly get used to it. If there's anything you need, you can tell me. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me or ask Nie Xiao, and the others. You're familiar with them, so you'll probably be bullied by them." Huh. Then he patted his belly and said, "Zhang Xiaohua, it's already past noon. Are you hungry? I'm so hungry that my front is sticking to my back. Do you want to eat with me?" Zhang Xiaohua cheered and said, "Okay, I haven't eaten the food from the mountain villa. I miss it very much. Captain He, let's go together." After saying that, the two of them walked to the dining room one after the other. When they walked into the dining room, everyone's lunch was coming to an end. He Tianshu's entrance didn't attract anyone's attention, but Zhang Xiaohua behind him attracted everyone's attention. Some of the people in green who had finished eating and were preparing to leave also sat down, as if waiting for something. Zhang Xiaohua walked into the hall, and naturally walked to the 2 tables of the people in green. However, she noticed that the 2 tables were full of people. There wasn't a single empty seat. It seemed that she had encountered the awkwardness of the first meal. Could it be another small trap by the people in green? Zhang Xiaohua's seat used to be Lu Er's, but now that Lu Er was back, that seat was naturally taken by Lu Er. Of course, there was no empty seat for Zhang Xiaohua to sit. And those people in green who had finished eating didn't leave their seats. Then where could Zhang Xiaohua sit? It seemed that this was the reason why the people in green sat down again. Unfortunately, the joke in their eyes was that Zhang Xiaohua wasn't at a loss like before. They saw Zhang Xiaohua take a few steps forward and suddenly patted her forehead. She changed direction and went in another direction. The people in green thought that maybe Zhang Xiaohua was going to get a chair. However, they still sat firmly in front of the dining table and didn't move at all. It seemed that they were clinging to the dining table and didn't relax. If there wasn't any free space, what was the use of taking a chair? However, when Zhang Xiaohua walked to He Tianshu's table, she didn't continue to look for a chair as everyone thought. Instead, she sat down unceremoniously. Everyone was stunned for a moment before snickering. Who didn't know that the bunch of people from Ethereal sect had always looked down on people in green robes and hats? Now that a new manservant was sitting among them, wouldn't he be kicked back by them? The people who were expecting to see Zhang Xiaohua embarrassed didn't expect to see someone being flattened. Their hearts were filled with anticipation. They waited for the wonderful moment when Zhang Xiaohua was kicked away. Just as dozens of pairs of eyes were watching, Nie Er from the Misty School raised his hand. The people in green shouted in their hearts, 1, 2, 3, clap. When they shouted clap in their hearts, Nie Er didn't send Zhang Xiaohua flying with one slap as they expected. Instead, he gently landed on Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder. His face was smiling like a flower as he said, "Brother, you're finally back. Are your injuries better? Hurry up and eat some drumsticks. I heard that eating something is good for nourishment." Ding dang, clang clang plop. A series of chaotic noises were heard. The people in green clothes and small hats all had their glasses fall off. Some had their eyeballs fall off. Some had their eyeballs fall off. Some had their jaws drop. They were in a state of panic. Some even fell to the ground. After everyone sat down again and tidied up their faces, they stood up in exhaustion. They didn't see the excitement that they had hoped for, and could only entertain themselves. They walked out of the dining room, and collectively looked at the scorching sun in the sky. They shouted in unison. How strange the sun didn't rise from the west. Afterwards, the people in green all stared at Zhang Xiaohua, who was happily eating, as if they were looking at a traitor whose life was about to come to an end. They fiercely stared at her for a few times before resentfully leaving. They almost spat a few mouthfuls of phlegm on the ground. It wasn't that they didn't want to vomit, but they were afraid that they would be fined by the middle-aged woman on duty in the villa. There was no invoice, so even if they were fined, they wouldn't be able to find anyone to reimburse them. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know about the petty thoughts of the people in green all the time. Perhaps she didn't want to know. She was doing her best to eat the delicacies in front of her. In the past, she already felt that the working meals of the people in green all the time were not bad. In the past few months, Yudai's meals had also raised Zhang Xiaohua's appetite. Her taste was also a bit tricky, and she was no longer as ignorant as she was when she first came here. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua realized how ignorant she was at that time. She actually thought that Tianshu and the others ate too little and didn't have enough food. Alas, the ancients said that one could never get tired of eating good food. Oh, right, there was also a saying, the ignorant are fearless. There is a survey for authors. Please select it. Please add it. Thank you. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.